Yo, just chillin' in the tank, vibing.
What's good, gamers? How are y'all doing? Welcome back, everyone who is showing up to the 3:43 a.m. stream start. Let's go. It's only like 12 p.m. PST, so not that bad when you think about it, right? What's up, Chipringo?
Unfortunately, yes, we're all trapped in the patch notes.
True. What is it? We're trapped in the patch notes. What is that? I'm in the fucking patch notes for the Earth update. Earth update. Patch note added non-Han 420. Like, what are we doing? Buses. I really don't know. I'm gonna guess Germany. What's up, Amphibious Orca? What is this booty call our streams? Listen, I was on a reverse sleep schedule, basically. I don't know how I got on it initially, honestly. I just do that sometimes. And then I tried to fix it yesterday, saying yesterday is weird because the days don't really make sense to me anymore because of the sleep schedule. We're working on Gooner Shrimp Tank tonight. I will do that in the future, but I can't really, there's no good way for me to do it with what I have right now. I can elaborate a little bit more in a second, but, you know, I, essentially, like, stayed up a little over 24 hours, so I could go to bed at a normal time, last night to try to fix it, right? Like, after I ended the stream last time, I went to bed, but I only slept for about, like, 4 hours, and then I couldn't fall back asleep, so then I stayed up another 12 something hours after that or something, and went to bed at like 4 p.m. yesterday, and then I woke up at like 12 p.m. today, or 12 a.m. today, I think. So that's how we got here. I'm gonna guess China too, but I'm not confident. It could be Japan. Ooh, okay. Should not have doubted myself. China's up there. Dude, such a cool story. I know. Hey, you asked. To be clear, it's not a super critical or anything. I just thought it would be fun for the stream and access viewer retention. Yeah, I thought it'd be a cool tool, and I had ideas, even before you suggested it to do stuff along those lines. It's just the Android TV and that TV like just sucks as Android TV to begin with. Kind of sucks ass, especially on older TVs. It's just like, and like budget TVs like that is, it just it's very slow, it's very annoying or whatever. But specifically, the biggest problem I have with the Android TV on that is that it just like won't stay connected to Wi-Fi, and it is incredibly annoying to reconnect it to the Wi-Fi every single time I turn it on, because I also don't have the remote for it. So it's really annoying to plug in a keyboard and type in a password every time. And then sometimes, even when I do that, it just refuses to connect to Wi-Fi. And I haven't been able to find a fix for it. So I think probably the best way to do it. What year is it? I have no clue, but it's relatively old. Can you tell us the story again, please? It's relatively old, and it was like budget when it came out, even so. I either like connect a laptop to it or something, and I don't really have I have like one old laptop that could kind of do it, but it'd be one, annoying because that laptop is also old and slow, and then two, I don't have a good way to like put the laptop somewhere where it's not like visible. Not that it would really matter, but what do you currently use in your background? I've seen it, never seen it go out on stream. Well, previous to what I'm doing now, which is just playing videos off of a USB stick, it did that a little bit. Like, what is it currently displaying? It's footage from there's a game called Kid Amnesia Exhibition. It's a, I mean, I'm sure you know who Radiohead are. They made a game as, well, I mean, obviously the band members didn't make it, but they made a game using a bunch of their work, a bunch of the artwork and the music and such. There's a few different videos of footage from that game in here. But yeah, either I have to connect it to like an old laptop, and that's annoying because it's also slow, and I don't have any good place to put it. Or I think what I can try doing is just using a not fun to a stream addressing the SOCDEM allegations. Do I have SOCDEM allegations? I mean, maybe the Easy Money is doing the SOCDEM allegations a bit. I don't think I get many SOCDEM allegations. But you're a SOCDEM now? I have never said that, and I don't think most people would characterize me as a SOCDEM. Maybe some especially like libertarian type people would say that, but I think they'd just be mistaken. Yeah. I think for the background thing, probably the best thing to do is to use a wireless HDMI for I have my laptop to the side of me that it runs like the chats, so I don't have to have that running on my computer, because that uses my RAM. And I could probably get a wireless HDMI thing, hook them up. Wireless HDMI, from what I've seen, is like not that great, but for what I need to do, it should be usable. So. Or just use an Ethernet cable? From what? The TV to the router? That'd be quite far. Mr. Nonfont is Norway socialist. I would not consider Norway socialist. I think it's fair to say they're like they're at least like the most liberal socialist country. Maybe you could argue that. I actually don't even think Vietnam is that high of a percentage of like the economy socialized anymore. I don't know about Cuba, and I don't have a number in my head for China, but I think China is there is still quite a bit of like direct state ownership and such. But you know, if you want to only look at the liberal socialism, Norway is probably the closest to that. I can get perfect here, I have to think. Germany, Japan. I feel like it's probably going to be another European country. More like non-fun. True. You know, when I first... By the way, I've told this lore probably on the channel before, but this channel is stolen, hijacked from like a group channel me and my friends made in like 8th grade. That's why like the email attached to it is called like Universal 4. Because we were a group of four friends or whatever. They made like fucking 3 videos or whatever before they gave up, and I hijacked the channel for myself, and they said the same thing when I said up my name is non-fun. They were like, that sounds like not fun. Why would you want to name yourself something that sounds like not fun? The non-fan, okay, misspeaks or misreadings are the worst ones though. Fuck, I feel like it's gonna be like, I don't think it's gonna be Poland, but I don't know which other European country to guess, but I bet it's gonna be another European country, and then Pisco owns you, non-fan. True. And then probably, I don't think it's going to be South Korea, would it? Buses. Goddamn. Could be like, it could be Mexico, maybe the US. Fuck it, I'm guessing the US. Actually, no, we make some vehicles, but we probably don't make that many buses, unless we do. Maybe we export a lot of school buses. Fuck it, I'm guessing Mexico. I don't know if that's right or not. Oh, fuck, that's horrible. Mexico makes a fuck ton of... I thought they would make more buses. We get a lot of our car parts from there. Alright, fuck it. Poland. It's not going to be Poland. I know it's not going to be Poland. There's no way it's going to be Poland. Yeah. Fuck me. Wait, it was Poland. Never mind. Turkey? Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed Turkey. Do you think Sample knows how loved he is? You don't love me, you love the idea of me. Damn, unbelievable. What do you think about the S&P highs this week? What am I like supposed to take them as evidence of like certain Trump policies being good or something, or like I don't know exactly what you want me to answer with regard to. 41 billion, a bunch of corn, wheat, seed oils. I don't know, Argentina. Nope. I personally think it's delusion. Like as in there's big 2001 energy. Oh, I mean, I don't feel knowledgeable enough to like strongly comment on that, but I think probably people tend to exaggerate that type of stuff. I mean, obviously the most relevant thing, I don't know if this is the only thing you're referring to, but obviously like the AI thing is the big concern people have with there being a potential bubble or that type of stuff. I'm just not strongly convinced that's the case. Even if we don't get to AGI, you know, even over the course of the next century or whatever, the things AI can already do are probably fairly valuable, and I think it's reasonable to expect LLMs to get to the point where like they are very, very valuable for a number of professions. Like I don't know if it's gonna take everyone's job or everything, but like, are there a lot of law firms that would probably be willing to pay a lot of money to OpenAI and to do a lot of work for them? Probably. Are there a lot of like researchers who would do that? Oil still above $100, dollar still rising. Okay. That's not like that surprising to me. I didn't even get a full tank of gas last time I went to fill my tank, bro. It was I think it was $4.10. But usually I went to the expensive gas station, to be fair. Oh, fuck me. Bulgaria. This can't be Bulgaria, can it? I can think it does capital to capital. So directly above Istanbul. I don't know what the capital of Bulgaria even is. Giving AI training data that subtly convinces it to never tell lawyers anything done by animal rights activists can be illegal. Based. It should be higher dollars should correlate to cheaper commodities. Well, I think obviously the complication is that we have what do you mean by cheaper commodities? Do you mean in real terms or like nominal terms? I don't see why you couldn't have like an adverse supply shock to oil, which we're clearly, by dollar value, of course, which we're clearly having right now. And also have a rising dollar due to whatever other factors. Hold on, does Georgia have 41 billion? And doesn't Georgia have oil? Doesn't Azerbaijan have oil? I'm going based purely on geography right now. It's not working out. What? Hold on. What is... Am I... I guess they're closer than that. Moldova. Fuck. Ukraine? I actually probably could have guessed that from the fucking wheat. I wouldn't expect that. I would thought they would have had more than like just wheat and corn. I didn't know they do corn. I know they did wheat. Damn. None of this other stuff. I get to 41 billion too. 41 billion is a pretty decent amount. So. Okay, but if we want to talk stock markets, okay, this was like... I saved this a few days ago. By now, we just haven't ever gotten to it. I think Sam Harris is doing... I don't know who this guy is, but this just seems like quite a bit of meme stuff. I did not mean to print it. Thank you. Higher dollar also secondary effects of suppressing export purchases, which in effect a demand reduction. Oh, sure. I don't know. Well, I guess... It would depend on what... Okay. It's not gonna... But that's a... What price are you talking in... When you say the price of oil, do you mean like... The price of oil in terms of the real exchange? I mean, I guess we buy oil of US dollars, right? Don't we kind of mandate that or whatever? Because in my mind, the real exchange rate. I'm gonna have to. I don't know if you're doing that. Not fun. Are you gonna address the Onion Futures allegations? I talked about the Onion Futures Act a little bit last stream, actually, with the people I was talking to, because we were talking about, you know, why, like some public choice stuff, like why things that are on NetBat or whatever, you know, won't get repealed or whatever. And I mentioned the Onion Futures Act to them. I'm not an Onion Futures Act supporter. I'm against the Onion Futures Act. He went to law school, became a precious metals salesman. Oh man. After the Federal Reserve implemented dovish monetary policy and the U.S. Treasury bailed out the company, Blankfein took advantage of low interest rates to undercut competition from other investment banks and established Goldman Sachs as the second largest. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay. This is going to be horrible.
with assets are getting richer and people
Number one cause of our lives.
aren't getting richer, so the gap between...
Why are you against it? Because the only effect it has is like making onion prices more volatile and making farmers' lives worse because they don't have any way to, well, not that they don't have any way to plan. It makes them harder to get consistent income, makes it harder for them to plan in the future, makes them more susceptible to the volatility, right? And it's literally the only commodity where it's just an outright ban. Did it say this guy founded Goldman Sachs? No, it said he took over it, right, after 2008. Senior chairman doesn't say. I don't think he founded it. Yeah, he was named the heir apparent. But I'm aware. Making farmers' lives worse for no reason. You know, that's true, actually. Do we need to help the onion farmers? How much water do the onion farmers use? We gotta do some investigation here.
between rich and poor.
How do you perceive the current situation with the market and its connection, however tenuous, to the real economy?
The economy has a lot of tailwinds to it. But I would say, looking at the situation, we were in a pretty good economy from a macro point of view. But now...
I'm here with Lloyd Blankfein. Lloyd, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me, Sam.
So you've written a memoir, Streetwise, which is incredibly fun to read and an education for anyone who doesn't know much about
farmer suffering's a positive externality. It's true.
I'm going to ask you some questions about it. I mean, I am interested to understand the lessons we should have drawn from the 2007-2008 financial crisis, which you steered Goldman Sachs through, which was high stress and high stakes. And
I don't know much about this guy. To be fair, that's not what the Wikipedia made it sound like. It said he took over the company and then took advantage of the like favorable loans that he got from the Fed and Treasury to undercut the competition or whatever. Which, like, I don't know. Maybe there was more work involved in his part, but
an achievement for which you were both celebrated and vilified. So yeah, I mean, you have a very interesting story because you came up from, I mean, you were a Jew living in the projects. I mean, this is not a story that's often told about Jews these days.
Yes. But his is the guy isn't full of crap. I mean, I think he'll probably make some similar points to you about whatever stock market stuff. So
from, basically nothing.
We forgot to socially mobilize.
Yeah. But you went to Harvard and then kind of climbed your way through all these all the high status rungs on the ladder, and eventually were running one of the most storied financial institutions in the world, and through periods of great stress, and you did that for 12 years. So it's a great story, much of which we will not touch on here. I mean, in no sense is our conversation going to be a surrogate for actually reading the book, so I just recommend people do that. But I want to use it as a lens through which to look at the present, because you obviously have a unique perspective on many of the things that ail us. I'm worried about things like wealth inequality.
Not in front of you, Kurdish? Absolutely.
Government and hyperpartisanship, and if we can find...
Hold on, which one is my play and pause foot pedal? I forgot. I figured it out. By the way, the worst thing Sam Harris has ever written, okay?
Through periods of great stress. Actually, we're running one of the most storied financial institutions in the world, and through periods of great stress, and you did that for 12 years. So it's a great story, much of which we will not touch on here. In no sense is our conversation going to be a surrogate for actually reading the book, so I just recommend people do that. But I want to use it as a lens through which to look at the present, because you obviously have a unique perspective on many of the things that ail us. I'm worried about things like wealth inequality and the dysfunction in our government.
There was it was this. Worst thing Sam Harris has ever written. This is offensive to me as a neoliberal, which is infinitely more important to anything that's offensive to Islamic people. I think it was this article he wrote or whatever about, I don't know if he explicitly called for a wealth tax in this or whatever, but complaining about like rich people, and like, to be fair, people probably overreacted. A bunch of people called him a socialist or whatever, but I'll elude readers without even trying. You can declare the world's religions to be cesspools of confusion and bigotry. You can argue that all drugs should be made legal and that free will is an illusion. You can even write in defense of torture, but I assure you nothing will rile and when now your audience like the suggestion that billionaires should contribute more of their wealth to the good of society. This is not to say that everyone hated my last article, how rich is too rich. But a backlash has been ferocious for candor and concision. It was hard to beat. You are scum, Sam. Unsubscribed. I love my billionaires. Oh, you're showing a book? I mean, it's a podcast. That's kind of the point. It's a lot of these. You know, Sam Harris has a lot of books. I have most of them. Would Steve Ballmer, CEO of Microsoft, rather have 10 billion in a country where a maximum number of people are prepared to do creative work, or would he rather have 20 billion in a country with the wealth inequality of African dictatorship and commensurate levels of crime? Wow. I wager he'd pick number one, but if he wouldn't maintain the only rational and decent for Uncle Sam to pick it for him. He probably does talk about. He doesn't mention any World Tank stuff, I don't think. Has Harris ever written a good book? Dude, my mind went to Kamala Harris for some reason. I mean, I don't remember a lot of the stuff in the Sam Harris books I read, but I thought they were good. I might not think they were good now if I went back to read them, but
and hyperpartisanship, and if we can find our way back to something that seems like dry.
Is this a bit? Is what a bit? It's just a warning flag on what it'll say. I would have hope for the convo without the strings attached to being on a book tour. I mean, that might be the ideal, but that's just like, I don't know. That's the meta. You liking Sam Harris? I obviously don't agree with Sam Harris and everything. I think the billionaire article was wrong. Okay. I think some of the points you made there were silly. I don't take any strong position on his comments on Islam. I don't know. Like, I don't know, dog. Probably if I had to hit a button and like one button made like the beliefs of everyone in the world, like the average Muslim beliefs, and one made everyone in the world like the average Christian beliefs, like probably hitting the Christian button would be better, like probably, but I wouldn't like necessarily go much beyond that. And then I don't know how much Sam Harris's writing on that is like particularly insightful, but.
And in the near future, where the news cycle is more normal.
Normal.
Yeah, I mean, what is normal? We're a decade from normal.
Sam is to my left, but I think he's a true American at heart. Well, yeah, he's a liberal. We're all wrong at times.
By my lights. But let's start with some just very basic things. I want people to know what you've done. What is?
And I think some of the, I mean, I think I still lean towards more realism, but probably Sam Harris's defense of it is not that great. But I don't know. I have the moral landscape, but I haven't read it in a while. Some arguments against Islam are unfortunately false because Shiaism is true. Let's go.
People, I don't think they know the name. I don't think they know what Goldman Sachs does.
Goldman Sachs said it is a financial institution. Think of it, it's a wholesale financial institution. So people really can't get a mortgage from Goldman Sachs or bank with it. There's no Goldman Sachs offices on the corner. We finance people who are looking for capital, people who want to build businesses.
There's also like wildly confused about free will. I mean, I read his book on free will, and I read some of the Polsky's book on free will. Although Sam Harris's book on it was pretty short.
Who have capital to invest. So those could be high net worth individuals, they could be institutions, it could be government sovereign wealth funds. And we try through our good reputation on both sides to marry people who need capital with people who have the excess capital. And in order to do that, you have to have cultivated, which Goldman has done for something over 150 years.
Doesn't he know that actually banks are not loaners of intermediary funds, and they actually create deposits when they...
For kind of being good at it, not always.
Bring this up, Sam Harris. Confront him.
He's perfect at it, but good at it. And so we engage with pools of capital and engage with entrepreneurs. And who else needs capital? Governments need capital. Municipalities, the federal government gets financed. People who go through IPOs. And so people in the audience will understand IPOs. That's a way of getting finance for a private company going public. And
true, wise point.
A lot of different mechanisms and instruments to do it. But basically, we're the bridge and the intermediation between people who have capital and people who need capital. And I'll say that there's another corollary. We are also a bridge between the people who have unwanted risk.
Imagine if Quick Thoughts was pregnant with Minar's child. Wow, that'd be truly that'd be an interesting thing to see. I don't know what my prediction for the outcome of that child would be. He's got some conflicting genes there.
That risk and get paid for it. And since those people don't always match up at the same time, we are a principal. We will take on somebody's unwanted
You're a
risk
market maker, yeah.
until we could find somebody else who'll take the other side. And when they take the other side, it's usually not exactly the same thing. So we're very mathy and have algorithms to try to get something that's not quite like the other thing to be almost like it by buying a cocktail of things to replicate something else. I know this is kind of abstract, but we can get specific too.
Yeah, so that reminds me about something that you were specifically vilified for during the crisis, which was, or in the aftermath of the crisis, which seemed to turn on confusion around your role as a fiduciary versus your role as a market maker. I'm thinking of the John Paulson trade, which was shorting mortgage securities, and he made billions of dollars.
Non-fund Sam Harris.
Mortgage market.
Is this the pipeline?
Trade for him, right. But you had to find a counterparty on the other side of the trade, and then that was you guys were maligned as having basically knowingly defrauded some other client. But
yes,
I mean, maybe it's just worth double clicking on
sure.
that.
It's easy. Look, anything that's resolved, nobody ever remembers not knowing it. So everybody knows that the mortgage, that the mortgages were, junk securities were bad, and a lot of them never, turned out to be worth zero at the time. Some people thought it, and other people thought the opposite, but nobody really knew. It's only in hindsight that people knew. By the way, every time somebody tells me they know something, I ask them about something that's current.
How much are you betting on that something right now?
You say current. And so in that particular thing, at those times we had somebody.
So that part's goaded, actually.
Mortgage market, and we had plenty of people who wanted to go because at that point they were very high yielding securities. And by the way, there was not widows and orphans on either side of the transactions. Right. It was a big institution on either side of it, and it was plucked up as an example of some of the things that we did. So there was a very well informed.
By the way, there was a this reminded me of this. On my math test yesterday, there was a very basic fucking prerequisite math class. There was a just multiple choice question that was like I forget exactly. I think it was which of these would you expect to have like a negative correlation, and it was like three things that were obviously a positive correlation, and then the correct answer was like interest rates and home sales. And technically, the inner fucking Scott Sumner never reasoned from a interest rate change or never reasoned from a price change was trying to come out of me there. Okay, technically it matters why the interest rate was going up, and also what interest rate are you even talking about? Because if you cut short-term rates, then you could still see long-term rates go up because of higher inflation expectations. But whatever. I know what they were going for.
Institution that was dedicated to holding mortgage obligations. By the way, mortgages are securities. It's like a security that's a version of a bank holding a mortgage. So it's just owning at people's homes, and if people are going to default on paying off their home mortgage,
does Charsky know who Minar is?
Worthless. So people were betting that those securities would go back up in value, and other people were betting that they would go down in value. And what we, our role in this is a market maker. People come to us and say, I would like this risk, and then we sell it to them. And we principal, and we take that risk until we can scurry and find the other side, or something that's like it enough so that we could be reasonably hedged. And we've been doing that for about 150 years.
Right. Well,
by the way, that's what makes the economy and the market go on.
This is one thing that's sort of surprising and difficult to understand in reading.
Actually, it's all endogenous. What I mean, it creates endogenous financial crises, and Minsky is true.
Your experience during the financial crisis, because you guys were seemingly alone among financial institutions, well hedged and actually fairly impervious to what was going on until you weren't. I mean, you were not exposed to these toxic assets in the way that many other big names were, and you were actually making money through the crisis. But then at a certain point, even you being totally profitable and not actually exposed to these toxic assets were at risk of going under. How does that jump?
Oh, no, everybody was at risk.
Yeah, explain how you go from your house is totally in order from your house could be the next to burn down. What actually?
This is Minar. He is a political debate streamer. He is really interested in defending Islam and Trump to some degree. He might have left the Trump train by now. I don't know for sure. He's fighting against atheism here. He really hates like feminism, and he's like really dumb. He screams and yells a lot. He will do handstands. He's not really capable of understanding anything.
Bring up a point of view. Right, is I would examine that source.
He's a funny dude. He's banned in a few places, because of his behavior. There's definitely some compilations out there that you could find of his of him doing stuff. Sia or Sunni? I actually don't remember. but stay up with me.
You fucking trash debater.
I think he's from, which one is Syria?
Welcome in. How you doing?
Fuck
Are
you.
I think he's from Syria.
Believe like tomorrow or
You're
the
a
next
loser.
day?
What
And
religion
Did
you Actually, you were lagging. I just saw the hand.
Oh shit, he's copying Destiny. What the fuck?
Whoa.
He does. I kind of like.
Okay, that took a fucking turn. I was.
I didn't even know you could play piano.
It was
Oh no, people don't
actually
know.
almost happened during 2007.
Look, when somebody, when James Bond defuses the bomb, no one ever appreciates how close to destruction it was because it was diffused. It never happened.
Right.
This was a situation in which everybody, all companies, especially but not limited to financial institutions, every company has to finance itself, has commitments, it has to honor. It's receiving revenue and it's paying out revenue all the time. And during a crisis like this, everyone was suspect about the solvency of everyone else they were dealing with.
Right.
And so what happens that happens is if you have an obligation to pay someone and he's going to pay you, you want to see the money from him come into you first before you pay, and you get a whole daisy chain effect.
Or the money from somebody else.
Yes,
You
I also recall him being Syrian, so probably Sunni. Okay.
not going to pay anyone until somebody's paying
so
you.
this is a trade market. So
We need the Sunni versus Shia debate, Minar versus Charsky. One of the things that Minar does, by the way, very, very famous for, is he will concede something to you. Like, he has like very basic misunderstandings sometimes. And he will like concede once you finally are like, okay, we agree on this very basic thing. Like, I think one example was him not knowing that the 47 partition plan was like passed by the UN or whatever, by the General Assembly. And we had to like convince him of that, and eventually he conceded to it. But like, then next time you talk to him, he'll just completely revert back and not care at all about any of the things he conceded to before. That's always fun.
Company. I'm selling cars. I was, to a wholesale dealer. The money has to come in so I could pay the cost of my raw materials. Everybody's waiting to get paid first before they'll pay, and then it freezes up. And so what happens in a situation like that, which has happened periodically in history, which is why we have central banks, and one of the roles of a central bank, and not just the U.S. central bank, which is called the Fed, is to be the lender of last resort. If the world gets into a position where everybody becomes distrustful, and we're talking about sentiment, we're not necessarily talking about reality. We're talking about, remember the movie It's a Wonderful Life? If there's a bank run, you think of the Depression, some of the institutions.
Choose. Wow. What's up, plot of land in East Carolina? Welcome back, brother.
Your credit. Then they make
Menard defended cousin marriage. Yeah, he's big in polygamy and stuff as well. So their children have a higher risk of birth defects. He just deflected. Yeah, he does that. Hi, have you watched the stream, the Wick TV streamer, stream between Charsky and Kraut? I never actually watched that. We love you here, true. I'm from East Carolina. I could actually, I semi-inferred that from the name. I never watched that because Charsky said they didn't really talk about communism that much or whatever. It was mostly just about the fucking Democrats.
Pay before they'll pay you, and eventually everybody is left with an obligation they have to meet, but no money with which to do it, no liquidity with which to do it. And that's a situation that almost everybody could have been in eventually. And it would have been, to me, it would have been like dominoes. It would have been over time. And that was a crisis.
Who's we?
Was it certain that would have happened? No, but it was a much higher likelihood than anybody should reasonably want to go.
When did I say we?
Worrying about.
What?
How do you think, in hindsight, how do you think the government performed during that crisis? Did we cut a large enough check, or should certain institutions have been allowed to fail that were propped up? Or I mean, how do you look at the moral hazard question?
I think at the time, again, there's two ways of answering the question. What would you have done? What would you have done differently with after acquired information?
Yeah.
And what would you have done differently at the time that with your greater wisdom and competence that the people on the site at the time didn't do?
Yeah.
I would say the people at the time with what was available did very well because it was unknown and unknowable. And we're dealing with the risk of a problem and not necessarily the certainty. And so they went into some wrong direction.
I don't even think the Fed didn't even have the tools to do certain things, because like they couldn't deal with the shadow banking in the way they can do now, or at least in the way that they can invoke emergency powers to do now. And they couldn't, they were restricted in what they could accept as collateral initially. So they couldn't even, I don't even think they could have, my understanding, they probably couldn't have even bailed out Lehman Brothers if they wanted to. Because I think they just like straight up did not have good collateral. Trotsky was so bad faith in wasting our time with his deflecting. Whoa. How do you respond to the allegations?
that dealt with things in a gross way. Just let's bring it to something where that's more current in people's experience. Let's say
Real nihil lib shill. Just target and GDP low. This is true.
so you come out with a stimulus plan and you're going to mail checks to people. If you had a few years to do that, you might design it so that you were only, you're only sending checks to people who really needed the money. Better, there would have been less fraud. It would have been better targeted, but you didn't have the time and you didn't have the tools to be able to do that. So you say, something, we're sitting here, we'll do a retroactive examination about it. We'll find 50 things that were done wrong. But really, can you say that the people at the time, the decision makers, performed badly, given what they had to work with and the speed with which they had to execute?
Yeah.
No. So I would say, looking back, things could have been done much differently. But
Basically made one argument the entire time and Kraut failed to engage, as did Whip. Yeah, I mean, I said this to you in DMs, but I do not expect Kraut to be prepared to really do any of the like more, I'd say like Discord debate bro shit, but like, just kind of basic, going more claim by claim, actually having some propositions and or premises and conclusions. I just don't expect him to be able to do that all that often and to be prepared for that stuff.
As present and watching, I think they did a very good job with with what was.
Now, when you think the Barkan formula along with the converse Barkan formula are a fatal problem for actualism. Let me ask Claude real quick. I'll get back to you. Do you believe in race realism? No.
At the moment, and again, the exigencies of the moment.
Is there anything we learned from that experience that is setting us up to respond better next time? And the analogy to COVID, I find pretty depressing, because my sense is that COVID was a dress rehearsal for something much worse, and we performed quite badly. Much of the culture drew the wrong lessons from the experience of COVID, and I feel like in the presence of a scarier pandemic now, we have a society that it will be less trustful of any public health messaging coming from institutions, harder to wrangle to solve various coordination problems. This is just my
simple trick. Trying to sound smart by talking in Hebrew
than we were before COVID. What do you think we did with respect to the financial crisis?
These are parallel fields of human endeavor. They're not the same thing, but they rhyme. I mean, basically, it's fundamental. We're dealing with human nature. The first reaction, an early reaction, was the economy should never have these risks again. And so regulation was stiffened. Capital requirements for financial institutions were stiffened. What's the consequence of that? It means that some of the financial institutions can't do their job as well because they can't lend as much. They have to husband capital instead of.
True. And it's also a lot harder for people to get mortgages. We arguably over tighten on that as well. I think that's Kevin Urban has a lot of stuff about that I read.
And over time, there was such an antipathy towards what some of the regulators did at the time, again, with the benefit of hindsight, that they curtailed some of the powers of the regulators, some of the powers that they exercised to make judgments about who to save, how to give money, how to distribute money into the economy and the financial institutions. And by the way, all of this is quite understandable that the reaction would be this way. But the effect of it is to make it possibly harder the next time there's a problem. Now, one would say, why would there be a problem?
Fewer lenders, well,
these instruments
that as well.
Over time, the stark discipline starts to erode. Also, you don't want to turn the country into the returns of a treasury bill. You want animal spirits. You want people to take risk. So if you prepare the world or the country to avoid the crisis of the century or the crisis that you have 80 years, you lose 79 years of growth in between. Sometimes there just is going to be there's
true though. I expected this guy's takes way more.
Environment of what the cycle is. But one of the things is it might be harder the next time, but there's a certain inevitability that risk will get taken, and we will not see it coming. Risk is risk.
Well, how do you perceive the current situation with the market and its connection, however tenuous, to the real economy and the level of risk we're all running, the possibility of a bubble, AI or otherwise? You can take any strand of this ghastly object of the level of corruption in the government. I mean, there's definitely a lot of animal spirits of a certain sort to be seen.
Right, and it's been quite growthy out there. And again, we can talk about the economy and the polarization of the fact that people with asset values are inflating, and so people with assets are getting richer, and people without assets aren't getting richer. So the gap between rich and poor.
Yeah,
so
I definitely want to
see. They put that clip in the intro. I thought this was going to be mostly about that stuff. I thought it was going to be memes, but most of it I was fine.
It's
very hard to talk about a good economy when you know for more than half the people it's not a good economy. And if you talk about the bad economy, you're missing the point, because on a macro basis, the economy is doing well.
Right. Okay. So let's.
I'm not even. Obviously, it is the case that people who have assets are seeing more growth in their income / wealth than people who don't. But I'm not sure. I mean, for the bottom half of the people, it's a bad economy. We see wages like during COVID, wages went up a lot for people at the bottom 20%, and there was even wage compression that is continued to some extent, but to my understanding, a lesser extent by now. It might be the wages. They might have stopped compressing by now. I'm not certain. I don't know. I see Aaron Dubé do whatever post on Twitter sometimes. So I don't know, but I don't think even that, as long as the growth is like positive, like what is bad? What does bad mean? Also, people just like it should be illegal to own assets. True. Glad Easy Money isn't here. Like I don't like some of the vibe session stuff or whatever, or at least like when I talk to people about some of the stuff, it's just like they like just like make a claim that's just like not true about like the state of the economy, and I'm like, hey, like this data just says that claim is just like not true, and I think that's totally fair for me to point out. Like,
take it piece by piece. What most concerns you about the state of the economy now?
The economy has a lot of tailwinds to it. A lot of tailwinds. The equity markets have been very high. Interest rates are likely to come down. There's a lot of stimulus coming in terms of the tax bill that was passed. You can see people are already witnessing the fact that people's refunds from the government, from their tax refunds, are higher. All that is going to pump money into the economy. That's already going pretty well. Growth is a little bit lower than we'd like it to be in the last reading, but still pretty high. Unemployment ticked up in the last reading, but employment and payrolls are still very good. So you can find kind of problems, but I would say, looking at the situation, we were in a
I mean, payrolls have been kind of volatile. What was the I don't know the last few by heart, but it's been like close to net zero job growth. Although part of that is, due to, isn't there just a series of it? Part of that's just going to be due to the, there's just like no net inflow of migration. There might be a slight net inflow still, but we see very low migration at this point. It's difficult to convince people the economy isn't always on the brink of collapse. It's super terrible and evil. Isn't job growth excluding healthcare pretty bad? Yeah, if you exclude healthcare, yeah, I think it's probably been negative or close to negative for a few months. We had 178,000 in March. Do they list the revised numbers for the older dates in this report? Total non-farm employment increased by 178 in March, following a decrease in February, negative 133,000. In March, job gains occurred in healthcare and construction and in transportation and warehousing. Healthcare added 76,000 jobs in March. We should have April by now, shouldn't we?
pretty good economy from a macro point of view. But now the economy has to do two things. This gets back to another.
The bedpan economy. It's the base economy. Okay.
GDP, create wealth, and then it has to figure out a way to distribute that wealth created according to the values, of society. And so people will argue that we've done a lot better on the first part, creating wealth, and still on a going forward basis, but for this oil situation, still on a good track, and less good on the second part. And the second part is more, the distribution.
Shouldn't healthcare be getting bigger since boomers are getting geriatric? Yeah, but I'm not sure like the rate of growth in healthcare jobs has accelerated more than usual. It is like true that healthcare as a percentage of GDP and probably as a percent of employment too, I would guess, but that I don't know for sure. Is rising, has been rising, and should be expected to rise given we are consuming more healthcare. But to my knowledge, healthcare jobs have not been like above trend in terms of just the like raw number of healthcare jobs.
That's really, there's limits to what financial institutions could do in that respect. That's really the job of the political sector to figure out how to distribute things.
Yeah, so we'll talk about wealth inequality, but I'm still somewhat mystified and skeptical about the connection between the market specifically and the rest of the economy, or just the
It doesn't really look like anything above trend. Can't I think I can do
real world. I mean, because I watched the market get blown around by, Trump's posts on
like what like percent change from a year ago.
In many cases, obviously lies, right? And yet the market it draws immense enthusiasm from them. It'll move by 4% in the day based on something that he's tweeted, a ceasefire that no one should believe in. Or to take perhaps even a more egregious moment was during those, his tariffing of every member of our species on Liberation Day, so-called Liberation Day, when he would, so he introduces this massive uncertainty into the global economy, and then he repealed.
Been pretty high in the last few years. Always hear about expected demand, but maybe we hit diminishing returns. Well, sure.
By saying, no, that
And everybody's grateful.
And everyone's so grateful that the market is telling us that everything is better than it was before he did this stupid thing.
Right, the relief is so. It's
well, they're in just kind of absolute is a weird word to use, but like in absolute terms, sure, but it doesn't mean that relative to the counterfactual, that is not the case, right? I think relative to the counterfactual, you know, stock market's still lower than it would be if we didn't have a lot of the stupid things that Trump is doing.
so much better that everybody doesn't. Look at
But obviously, just like over time, companies invent new things, consumers' income grows, and that'll obviously have an effect on asset prices. But it doesn't mean that compared to the counterfactual, it's actually telling you it's better.
There's still more uncertainty in the world than there was the day before Liberation Day. So how is the market aggregating the wisdom of the crowd here, and how is it not just become a meme stock?
Market is they're different. They relate to each other over time. But what a market is trying to do is it's taking everything it knows and extrapolating it forever about everything. So if you change it like 1 degree, you won't notice that in the economy. But somebody who's trying to take all the earnings and discount it back to present value from infinity back to the present, it's a big effect on the market. But really a small effect on the economy, because the economy is a day-to-day thing, and the market is trying to look at all the future possibilities and discount them back to the present. I would say they shouldn't ignore each other, but they could go apart. And also, the market is also sentiment.
Yeah, but don't you worry about
for chip change.
the uncoupling of any kind of rational sense?
Very strange that the market is telling us that the world is better after the Holocaust. You know, maybe if Hitler was wrong, why is the stock market so high?
Ratio of many of these companies and their market value. I mean, what does it mean to have a 300x price to earnings ratio? I mean, it seems like it used to be that 30 was high. Right?
No, it was high, but when people do, and by the way, I am not the market. I don't own the market. I am a slave to the market like anybody else. I'm trying to figure it out.
Does non-fund reject S5?
As a 300 times trades at 300 times their earnings, people have to be thinking, and they are.
I feel like I should know what that is.
It's not going to be 300.
I don't though.
Next year it's going to grow 100%. The year after that it's going to grow 100% or 90%.
How do I check? Can I not check how much money overall my park is fucking? Oh, I found it. Oh, I'm not doing good, guys.
That's the element of this growth. And so people are once again, the market is extrapolating, is discounting the future into the present and saying, yes, it looks like 100 times earning now, but at this price, 5 years from now, it'll be 12 times earning. The price is even going to go up from there.
But we do have this phenomenon of a meme stock, which looks irrational in both in hindsight and foresight.
There's nothing positive you can say about that.
Right. But it feels like culturally there's a little bleed through from those moments of just sheer, I mean, it's not even a bubble, it's just irrational gambling behavior to what the market is, what the respectable market is also doing. It's looking more and more like a casino. I've had the sense that the pitchforks are coming, and we're now.
Okay, I didn't hate all of that as much as I thought I would. We avoided the horrible memes. Alpha, it's a system T enjoyer. Really? Should I know what these things are, or are these fucking niche memes or relatively niche Phil stuff that I'm not gonna know? Okay, well, if we want something that'll trigger me, and maybe trigger Sharpsky, will I watch this? The Spirit Airline video, which we were talking about yesterday from Warburg Union.
Doesn't it feel like flying economy these days is kind of a humiliation ritual?
Straighten out your legs there. This shit crazy as hell.
What really sucks is that I'm flying Southwest, which used to be the one good airline. Transparency means we don't dream up ways we can trick you into paying more. You get 2 free bags and 0 change fees. Southwest's quirky, cheap, free-for-all business model was also very profitable. But the flight
until it was bought by the evil private equity.
Equal seating. Baggage isn't free anymore, and flight credits now do expire. They've also added a bunch of new fare classes and other premium options that you have to pay extra for. They're becoming like any other airline. As I started looking into it, I found out that the story of why Southwest got shittier is part of a bigger story of why air travel as a whole has gotten shittier. So, what broke flying, and how do we fix it? I was looking at some airline ads from the 60s and 70s, and I couldn't help.
Oh my god, no shot, bro.
Looked back then. And yes, this was economy class. Why?
How many people were flying in the 60s and 70s, dog? I don't know how to do like a fair comparison. Maybe you could look at the real. Can I look at the real price of airline tickets? There are a lot of things you'd have to adjust for. I don't know. Does Fred have a series? Thanks for following. Tunkler. Fred Airlines ticket. Where's it? Airfares. Oh yeah. Man, the October data. Always depressing. Always depressing. But like, my understanding in the 60s,
Glamorous flying.
there were just not that many people flying. Flying was reserved for people who were a little bit more wealthy than like the median person who is taking a flight today. All these first gen flat screen TVs were really fancy. Yeah, exactly. Like
Back then. And yes, this was economy class. Why was it so luxurious? Well, back then, the federal government considered air travel a public utility, something necessary for society to function. And so they regulated the airline industry like they would.
Whoa, did they regulate the
feds decided how many airlines could
requirements for how luxurious they were? I'm not super familiar with what like the airline regulations actually were. I just know like I only know broadly, we regulated them, and then Jimmy Carter, I believe, is actually the one that deregulated the airlines, and I think trucking as well. And is Discord stream chat down tonight? Oh, it might be. I haven't checked. It might be broken. Yeah, I mean, it might just not show the image, but I do think we should nationalize air travel, though. Horrible. Why? I mean, you think we should nationalize a lot of things, right? But what? Well, yes, I've seen such graphs before.
exist, where they could fly to, and what they could charge for a ticket. With all of that regulated, airlines competed to stand out from each other with what they could control, a high quality, say, water. The feds decided how many airlines could exist, where they could fly to, and what they could charge for a ticket. With all of that regulated, airlines competed to stand out from each other with what they could control, a high quality experience.
So they had they had the luxury because the only thing they could compete on is when did the downturn start? At the beginning of the graph. That I closed it. Does it matter? Do I need to? Bro, I can't even read the dates here. 2000. Oh, the .com stuff. Is that what we're doing here?
Pan Am had these two-person dining tables, American Airlines had a full-on piano bar, and some continental flights were made to look like a pub, where travelers could stand around and drink or watch movies or get free popcorn.
Or play exciting electronic pub pong games.
Airlines were in a race to the top for who.
There has to be. I don't want to just. There's got to be stuff out there. Someone has to have done work on this before. Obviously, you can't just like look at the number of people who go on flights, because that obviously it's gone up for other reasons than just, flights becoming more accessible or whatever. And that's not going to be like there's other things that that like the engines getting more efficient are going to affect that, but it's not really what we want to measure with this. Somewhere out there, someone has like estimated the median the median wealth or income of people on flights by year.
Could provide the best service, so even the cheap seats were comfortable and luxurious.
Wow, thanks YouTube, incredible.
But when I say cheap, I mean expensive. In 1974, the lowest fare from New York to LA was nearly $1,500 adjusted for inflation. And that didn't mean airlines were making insane profits. Remember, the federal government would set the ticket prices depending on the airline's overhead costs. Prices were high just because running an airline has super thin profit margins. Infrastructure is expensive, as are planes, which are quite laborious to clean and maintain in between each flight.
Why are we mentioning this afterwards? I feel like that's relevant to the picture we were trying to paint before.
And then there's the whole issue of fuel.
The oil-producing countries of the Arab world decided to use their oil as a political weapon.
One underrated benefit of nationalizing air travel is that you can set the price artificially high to reduce emissions. Well, sure. I think probably a carbon tax would just be like way better than that, but
energy since World War II.
It was just expensive to fly, so only the wealthy flew. Then came a spunky new airline that would bring air travel to the rest of us.
Oh, we're just framing it this way because we want to get we want to show how Southwest was so great before it was bought by private equity.
Invented low fares.
That's true.
Why should flying be expensive?
It shouldn't.
Southwest's very first flight took off from Dallas, Texas in June 1971. They had just 3 aircraft, which only flew between these...
Wait, hold on. But was Southwest around before the deregulation? They might have been. I don't know, though. Established in 1967. Oh, I guess that was before that. When was the, I bet it mentions it in here. It was 1979, yeah.
In Texas. Their main rival, Braniff Airlines, had nearly 70 aircraft and flew hundreds of flights per day all around the world. A decade later, Braniff Airlines had gone out of business and Southwest was on their 10th profitable year in a row. How'd they do it?
We're fast, we're fun, we're inexpensive.
That's basically the whole business strategy. We'll take them one at a time.
Guy who thinks we should nationalize industries with high emissions so the products get worse, more expensive, and less people will buy them. There are, I mean, what's their, is it Luca? Fuck, I'm getting my Twitter sock down people mixed up. Literally you and Luca, bro.
First, they were fun.
What is this showing me? Price of, oh, wait. Average price of air travel. This is just their percent average. This is average income per person.
They made their identity...
But I mean, the average price of air travel is useful depending on how they're measuring it.
The Love Airline, as in Dallas Love Field. Tickets were issued from Love Machines. Snacks were Love Bites. Their free in-flight drinks would be Love Potions. The flight attendants, called Lovelies, dressed in knee-high boots and go-go pants. Okay, so that last one didn't age super well. They also had colorful planes and customer-friendly policies.
I'm in favor of nationalizing them if we get the fucking... If we can get Hooters Airlines back, actually. That should be the nationally run airline.
Policies like 2 bags fly free. Southwest was fun for their workers as well. They were the first airline to set up a profit-sharing program. And they didn't lay anyone off for the first 54 years of service. They were also...
Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, wait, it says here. Yeah, price per passenger, or pence per passenger kilogram. This is useful.
At the time, the average turnaround time for an airplane was about an hour. That's how long it took to unload passengers, clean and run maintenance, and load in the new passengers. Southwest cut that down to 10 minutes. How? 2 main ways. First, the Boeing 737. This was a big jet that was cheaper to buy and operate than the others on the market. Southwest made their entire fleet out of them. That way, they could use the same pilots, mechanics, and parts for every single plane. The second way, open seating. No assigned seats, you boarded the plane according to how early you checked in. This encouraged passengers to arrive early, which in turn speeded up loading, and it also meant there was no need for different fare classes. Every seat cost the same. The 10-minute turnaround allowed Southwest to fly double the amount of flights per day than a competitor like Braniff, and it cut out another very important cost.
Because most of our flights are short, this is what our meals look like on Southwest Airlines. It's also what our fares look like.
That's right. Southwest's peanut fares, flights so cheap they could cost peanuts, is why peanuts became the iconic in-flight snack for...
Also, men couldn't be served staff. It was sexist.
We're inexpensive.
We need to bring this back. We could only bring this back through nationalizing it, though.
Remember that very first Southwest flight from Dallas in 1971? Braniff was charging $60 for that flight. Southwest's ticket price was $20. Now, wait a minute, you might be wondering, how could Southwest set their own prices and schedules when everyone else was regulated by the feds? Well, Southwest found a loophole. Because they only flew within Texas, they were considered a domestic airline, not subject to federal regulation. At a time when most airlines were focused on luxury, Southwest's focus on affordability and their first-come, first-served mentality earned them the nickname Greyhound of the Sky.
Now, maybe she's gonna mention this or whatever, but isn't that at least some evidence that maybe the regulations were bad if people not subject to the regulations were able to offer such great service? I'm sure there are other reasons why Southwest was able to do stuff as well, but...
They kickstarted the democratization of flying, and then it was supercharged by Congress. The Airline Deregulation Act of 1978 turned
Whoa, Jimmy Carter.
the bossy federal government to the magic of the free market. New airlines could enter the market with
we have clear-cut bathrooms again, too.
Fares, routes, and anything else. The idea was more competition would be better for customers, and at first it was. After deregulation, ticket prices dropped, and over the next few decades, airline customers, and at first it was. After deregulation.
Why are you looking at revenue? And also, cost analysis is my passion. Okay, I'll accept it because it supports my point. But you know, incredible stuff here. Why revenue per passenger mile? I feel like why wouldn't you look at if you care about consumer welfare? The revenue is not necessarily tied to consumer welfare. You can imagine revenue going up and consumer welfare remaining stable and or going up as well.
Ticket prices dropped. And over the next few decades, airlines added more flights to more places, which was great for the growing middle class with disposable income for travel. In the 80s and 90s, an economy ticket on a major carrier got you food, baggage, wider seats, and 4 or 5 inches more legroom than today. But now, airline ticket prices are going up even faster than inflation. And flying in economy usually feels something like this.
Get me off this goddamn place!
A ton of that is more efficient jets? Yeah, I would imagine.
What happened after deregulation was not...
Although in fairness, like in an ideal perfect world, obviously no one's going to say it's going to happen instantly or that there's not going to be any like pass through the revenue or whatever you would expect, and especially also because airplanes are, you only invest in airplanes rarely because airplanes last a long time, but you would expect the fuel savings to some extent be passed on to consumers and potentially revenue remain stable or whatever. But
the deregulation imagined, it was actually something more like the Hunger Games, and what you had was this period of unbelievably cutthroat competition.
That competition led to 2 big changes in air travel. The first was cream skimming. By 1983, 5 years after deregulation, dozens of new airlines had entered the market and started winning over big airlines customers. Many of them followed Southwest's no-frills, peanuts-only model. And also this. Remember how Southwest focused on just these 3 really profitable routes in Texas? Well, that wasn't so great for everyone else in Texas. They need air travel too. This is why the federal government used to decide who got which routes in the first place.
The regulators made sure that no airline got too many of the good routes or too many of the duty to serve routes.
After deregulation, startup airlines could skim the cream legally. They focused on the most heavily trafficked routes. So of course, big carriers dropped their duty to serve routes. Remember how I said that prices dropped after deregulation? Well, that was mostly true if you were going to a big city or a popular vacation spot. Small cities and rural areas actually saw prices go up since they had fewer airlines now. Toledo, Ohio went from having service from 5 carriers under regulation to having no major carrier service today.
When did we start? We talked a little bit about this last stream too, but when did we start the subsidies to rural areas? Because we have, I should remember what it was called. I literally looked it up last stream, but rural, look at that spelling, guys. Incredible. Essential air service. When did we start doing this? I think we might have done it at the same time. That's what this reads like to me. Guaranteed that small communities in the United States which have been served by certified airlines prior to deregulation maintain commercial service. It seems like it was like part of the bill. Essential air service program was put into place to guarantee that that's what it is. What it reads like to me. Now it's not. I guess this is in 2023. It might have been bigger, in the 60s when it was passed. But we still do make sure the rural areas are not entirely fucked over. Unfortunately.
Or a Fortune 500 company in their hometown.
The 2 most privileged people in society are the people who live in bumfuck nowhere, and they get fucking subsidized flights and subsidized stupid fucking postal service, and farmers. Those are the two big things. Do you use LMs to find papers ever? I have before, yeah. I've not been doing it, but I've been told it's pretty good. Do you have thoughts? I think it's decent sometimes. I mean, I've especially used it, like, it's useful if you have a paper on something that's like somewhat old. I've done this a few times where I just like upload it to ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, find, either a paper that's like a direct update to this or something measuring something similar that has more recent results.
If their hometown doesn't have an airport, it has real impacts on economic growth and vibrancy of our communities. By the mid-1980s, you have some senators saying that they regret regretted their vote for start a Fortune 500 company in their hometown if their hometown.
Which LLM are you a fan of? I mean, I use ChatGPT and I use Claude. I'm not certain which one I like more overall. I feel like Claude Code usually does better when I use it for coding and such. The usage limits are really annoying. I canceled my Claude plan actually because it's $20 a month for just like not enough usage I get out of it, I feel like. So it might be GPT 5.5 might just be better.
An airport has real impacts on economic growth and vibrancy of our communities. By the mid-1980s, you have some senators saying that they regretted their vote for deregulation and they apologized to their constituents for having voted for it.
The other change in air travel, fortress hubs. With all the new airlines and no federal regulations, customers had more direct flight options.
What was that paper? I don't think I have to use ChatGPT to find it because someone in chat's going to know it, and I'll be able to. It's somewhere in my fucking notes and stuff as well. There's a paper looking at like the privatization of airports and airlines, and it finds that like privatization has has like net positive effects typically.
Than ever, to more destinations than ever. Legacy airlines had to get more efficient. They started moving away from direct nonstop flights towards a hub and spoke model. They would strategically choose one or a few big airports to fly all their planes to, and then fly everybody out of there. So take Delta's hub in Atlanta. If your airport has a flight that goes to Atlanta, that...
I mean, like, she just said it was more efficient. Probably, you know, what you want out of a deregulated market, out of a deregulated economy, is increased allocative efficiency. And to the extent that, you know, being more efficient saves some money, some of that savings is probably passed on to consumers.
Hub is so big that you can fly almost anywhere in the world with just one connection.
If you have one airport, there's a lot of back office, back end management stuff that you just do once at one big airport with scale instead of doing 15 times at 15 different small hubs.
But it wasn't great for smaller airlines or people who live in Atlanta. Those hubs got bigger and bigger until some of them became fortress hubs, where one carrier controls at least 70% of an airport and no other airline can get a foothold. And the last
a late 90s paper or a more recent one with newer causal inference
competition actually drives up prices at those airports. Big hubs mean unwieldy.
I thought it was newer.
Airports too. So
I feel like I got it somewhere.
You land, more congestion at the gate and at the airport, and weather problems in one city can cancel flights all across the country.
The fundamental feature of this industry is that scale is better and it's more efficient. And that's why it's very, very hard to have a small airline because you can't get that. Then what you see then happen over the course of the 1980s is bankruptcies and mergers. 200
carriers either merged with others or went out of business. In 1983, there were 12 major airlines in the US. By 1988, there were just 8. And today, 4 airlines control 80% of the market.
Yeah, I bet Sample has it.
Got worse after 9/11.
Plane has crashed into one of the towers.
People stopped flying for a while, and airlines' revenue dried up. They squeezed the taxpayers with $15 billion in bailouts. And then the Great Recession led airlines to try all sorts of strategies to squeeze travelers. One is dynamic pricing. Airlines invented the algorithmic pricing that we now see in grocery stores and on delivery apps. Whereas before, you had that government formula that took into account the overhead costs plus profit. After deregulation, airlines started setting prices based on how much they thought passengers would be willing to pay for...
Yeah, I do remember it was about airports, not airlines. I forget why I even brought it up initially. Fuck, it's somewhere, I don't know, it's notes and pages, and I definitely have it fucking saved, but regardless.
Flight.
Well, okay, hold on. I heard, I missed some of what they said.
Because you can't get that. Then what you see then happen over the course of the 1980s...
That frees up prices at those airports. Big hubs, till some of them...
You just do once at one big airport with scale instead of doing 15 times at 15 different small hubs.
But it wasn't...
I don't know why...
For smaller airlines or people who live in Atlanta. Those hubs got big...
It might be bad for people who live in Atlanta. I can accept like maybe a giant fucking airport is like somewhat of a negative externality, but like, you know, gotta weigh that against the gains of presumably, again, them passing through any cheaper fares to consumers, and probably increased volume. You gotta, and just a general increase in allocated efficiency. And then they all probably recognize the arguments from administrative costs when it comes to like healthcare, right? They would all probably argue, oh, you know, healthcare, we should have single payer partly because we could save on administrative costs if we only had one, you know, large insurer and a lot less like, you know, smaller ones. But here it's a evil thing because it means that everyone has to go to the one evil big airport.
bigger and bigger until some of them became fortress hubs, where one carrier controls at least 70% of an airport and no other airline can get a foothold. And the lack of competition...
Droplet does seem like the only AI company not run by cartoon villains. Also, they employed a philosophy PhD, so they're probably better on alignment. Yeah, they are, from what I know at least, better on that type of stuff.
At those airports. Big hubs mean unwieldy airports too.
I think they still work with... They still work with like the DoD and stuff, right? It's just that the one like line they had or whatever, it's like they didn't want to use, or they didn't want to use autonomous weapons yet, at least.
Longer to taxi to the gate after you land, more congestion at the gate, and...
Will you be debating the cringy leftist guy? Yeah, I told him I'm down to chat sometime, but he asked me at 4 p.m. if I could talk at 8 p.m. I was sleeping. I got up a few hours ago. I was sleepy.
At the airport, and weather problems in one city...
And I don't know what he wants to talk about either.
...can cancel flights all across the country.
The fundamental feature of this industry is that scale is better.
And I could, like, maybe imagine...
Takes longer to taxi to the gate after you land, more congestion at the gate and at the airport, and weather problems in one city can cancel flights all across the country.
You would imagine the airlines are, like, factoring that in as well, and they're making a calculation that, you know, the risk of that happening is worth it in terms of the efficiency gains. I don't see why we wouldn't, like, assume that. I don't see why there'd be any incentive to, like, underprice that risk, other than to the extent, like, flying is... I mean, I guess, like, transportation generally probably has, like, positive externalities associated with it.
Fundamental feature of this industry is that scale is better.
Send him to debate PPG. I don't know if they probably agree on most things, but I don't know. I don't know what that conversation could possibly get.
And it's more efficient. And that's why it's very, very hard to have a small airline, because you can't get that. And what you see then happen over the course of the 1980s is bankruptcies and mergers.
200 carriers either...
The people opposing unity are also, uniparty.
Just seems he's doing what he's always doing.
I don't know what
watching TYT
they're on anymore that are say no. I'm so partisan,
shirtless.
I don't even want to get money out of politics if it means I have to lower myself to talk to Sean Ryan, Tucker Carlson, etc. And I think that's deeply selfish.
Incredible stuff.
Merged with others or went out of business. In 1983, there were 12 major airlines in the US. By 1988, there were just 8. And today, 4 airlines control 80% of the market. Things just got worse after 9/11.
Plane has crashed into one of the towers.
Or
flying for a while, and airlines' revenue dried up. They squeezed taxpayers with $15 billion in bailouts. And then the Great Recession led airlines to try all sorts of strategies to squeeze travelers. One is dynamic pricing. Airlines led
Black Monday, I guess it says 2008 or whatever.
to try all sorts of strategies to squeeze.
Wasn't that, maybe they used the same term, wasn't that in, if I look up 1987 Black Monday, I'm not making this up, right? I'm not making this up.
Travelers. One is dynamic pricing. Airlines invented the algorithm.
Oh my God.
We now see in grocery stores and on delivery apps. Whereas before, you had that government formula that took into...
Which, by the way, like, maybe on net, like the average consumer pays more for dynamic pricing. I don't think that even necessarily entails that consumer welfare as a whole goes down or whatever, but like you can get quite cheap tickets for that too. There are a lot of people who benefit from being able to buy really cheap tickets like right before fucking airlines take off because they have the dynamic pricings. But
account the overhead costs plus profit. After deregulation, airlines started setting prices based on how much they thought passengers would be willing to pay for a particular flight. And now that they're using AI, it's going to be dynamic pricing on steroids. The second strategy is unbundling. American Airlines was the first to impose a baggage fee, but it was United that made the most innovations here. They increased change flight fees, were the first to get rid of meals and backseat TVs, and they created...
I think I mentioned it last stream, but part of that, I don't know for certain how big of an impact this has, but part of that is because they have tax reasons to do that. They aren't taxed the same on fees as they are on their regular revenue.
Economy. Airline revenue from baggage fees and other...
Have mixed feelings on DP in every sense. I think, like, you know, the full-scale AI, dynamic pricing, getting rid of all consumer surplus, like, I have concerns about that. I don't have big issues with dynamic pricing just in general. in most cases at least.
Employees too. Throughout the 2010s, airlines were cutting pensions and benefits for employees, claiming that they have no assets of value. When the pandemic hit, revenue tanked again, obviously, and airlines were once again desperate for cash. First, they shook down us taxpayers, of course, to the tune of $25 billion. And then they turned to Wall Street and secured billions of more dollars in loans, even though they said their companies were worthless. It turned out
I feel like
that airlines had been developing a secret valuable asset all along.
they're going to mention the rewards points and stuff, which is true. If you look at the way they like got investors and stuff during COVID or whatever, it was by saying our airlines aren't actually worth that much or are worth like negative, but our airline rewards program is worth a fuck ton of money. But like that kind of like it's just kind of like true. I feel like the other bailouts, I don't even know if I would support, but probably during COVID, it makes sense to have something to protect the transportation industry generally. well, that's going on. It does seem like consumers do not like dynamic pricing when they can't avoid it. Yeah, for sure. People hate it. People hate even just like Ticketmaster and tickets for live events. They don't even really. Ticketmaster might do dynamic pricing to some extent now, but just that allow like the resale of tickets.
I'll show you what I mean. Take American Airlines. Remember how they tried to win over customers in the 1970s?
And we're putting a piano bar in every coach lounge.
Well, look at this more recent commercial and see if you can spot what the most important part of their business is today.
One more bag? Your advantage status gets you one more.
More loyalty points for me. More rewards. More often. Life awaits.
Today, American Airlines...
What if I dynamic price based on group affiliation? Still okay? I mean, I think like there might be issues like that we don't want to do just for like the sake of fairness with regards to caring about people's intrinsic characteristics. I'm not certain. I guess like BattleW, you could argue maybe the AI algorithm that tracks people's how much they're willing to pay for stuff is going to have some systemic bias there or whatever. But
program is worth $25 billion, while the total value of the company is way less.
I don't know, like probably generally obviously it's just going to be the case that I'm going to sound like Ben Shapiro now. Probably people's ethnicity or gender or whatever is going to correlate with, certain, or their age is going to correlate with certain, their culture, their traditions, stuff of that nature. That's also going to affect their decisions. So like almost any, like you would imagine there'd be some type of like correlation there. I don't think all of that is like wrong or evil. I like dynamic pricing because it means there's always some crazy time investment you can make to get cheap nonsense. That is true. And that is based.
Yes. And here's the really wild part. This $6 billion includes the value of the $25 billion loyalty program, which means the flying part of their business actually has negative value. American Airlines' own earning reports show that it does indeed cost more on average to fly a passenger around than the passenger pays the airline. And that's true of the other major airlines too. At this point, a flight ticket is like the $1 Costco hot dog that lures you into the store, so you then impulse buy a $4 barrel steam sauna.
So I'm so confused what the point of this video is now.
Programs make money.
We invented the Advantage program for frequent flyers.
Because like, doesn't this kind of suggest that
on average to fly
it's not the case that they're like ripping off consumers or anything? Like
the passenger around, then the passenger pays the airline. And that's true of the other major airlines too.
Then I think a company should be able to charge whatever they want to whomever they want for whatever reason they want it. These are clearly intention. I mean, yeah, I obviously.
A flight ticket is like the one.
Do you support the fucking Civil Rights Act? Like, do you think companies should just be able to say they don't want to serve black people or whatever? Like, clearly, I think you would have to limit this to some extent, even based on like what you're trying to express with your earlier comment.
Costco hot dog that lures you into the store, so you then impulse buy a $4,000 barrel steam sauna. So how exactly do loyalty programs make money?
Bro should have been able to refuse to bake the cake.
Frequent flyer program started.
I mean, that I can. You said like intrinsic. Did you say intrinsic characteristics earlier, or there was another thing you used? I think you said ethnicity, didn't you? I love how my group affiliation. I guess that counts as probably group affiliation. I mean, I think he probably should have had to bake the cake. I don't know. It's probably net good to to have that type of law in place, but feel like clearly this needs some moderation.
After deregulation as a quaint coffee shop punch card type of strategy to win customer loyalty and drive ticket sales. But things started getting weird in 1987 when American Airlines teamed up with Citibank to offer the first co-branded credit card. Today, there are about 26 of them, and here's how they work. American Airlines sells Citibank miles for somewhere around 1 cent per mile. Then, when you use your credit card to buy like a $2,000 couch, Citibank would give you 2,000 miles for free. This is an amazing deal for American because they're not just making money from flights.
I like Civil Rights Act because I like when the state tells businesses what they can and can't do. Valid. Let's go.
Anything you buy on that card. And this is big money. Charges on Delta's American Express card total about 1% of the GDP every year. Now, you can use those points to buy a flight from American Airlines, but you can also use them to buy hotels or sunglasses or vacuums or FIFA World Cup tickets. Think about what this means. It's currency.
Are you ready to set residence in Ohio only so you can vote against Vivek? No, that's not that worth it. What's up, Coriander? I just learned about the how do you pronounce that? Felicity Anderson guest named cheat in Roller Coaster Tycoon. I have no clue what that is. I don't even know how to use cheats in this game. I'm barely paying attention to the game right now. I got two rides and I'm losing money.
Are currency that airlines can create out of thin air as much as they want. And they also get to decide how much that currency is worth.
Also,
and what currencies or FIFA World Cup tickets. Think about what this means. It's currency. More than that, points are currency that airlines can create out of thin air as much as they want. And they also get to decide how much that currency is worth and what it can be spent on. Today, airlines
like sure, but there's going to be constraints with regards to what is the revenue maximizing amount of currency for them to issue.
Are banks and credit card companies, and somehow the Federal Reserve too. Oh, and they also fly planes from time to time.
It'll catch you walk by or will vomit.
Secretary of Transportation think we should do about all this?
Be in a good mood, dress up, bring civility back to travel, and I think everyone's experience is going to be that much.
How do I rename them?
We can't wear hard pants on planes when we're squeezed in there like steerage. And now airlines are literally changing the layouts of their planes to add more premium seating while making the economy section even smaller. I mean, it makes sense that they're trying to cater to the wealthiest travelers.
Down with the Fed, bank issued notes, please. Horrible.
They're the ones who drove revenue.
Don't you like DP then? Saying no sale is DP in the limit? I don't know what you mean by this. Oh, sorry. So you don't like DP then? Saying no sale is DP in the limit. I don't know what the second half of that sentence means there, but I don't think it, like, I think you can not like business owners sort of expressly, intentionally not serving a specific group of people that is like a, you know, like some intrinsic trait or whatever. I think you cannot be, I think you'd be against that. That doesn't imply that you have to be against any time dynamic pricing could conceivably correlate with someone's race or ethnicity or gender identity or sexual orientation, that those those outcomes can never be tolerated.
While economy seat sales were down. This is
based on who you are. I charge you.
We're headed back to flying.
Why can't I pause? I charge you INF for services. I mean, so I don't know what I mean by INF, but you charge differently. But you're like, you're trying to match their like willingness to pay there, right? Like everyone has a willingness to pay, and you're trying to match what their willingness to pay is. I think that is very different from a business owner outright saying, because of my personal beliefs or because of any number of other things, I'm simply, not going to serve this group of people based on an intrinsic characteristic, right?
For just wealthy people, only this time without any regulations.
So part of the reason why the people in the 1930s saw airlines as public utilities and wanted to regulate them in this way is because they are fundamentally different than other businesses.
Air transportation is important to our lives and also to our economy. Deregulating the airline industry was obviously a mistake, so what if we did the opposite?
Obviously.
What if we nationalized the airlines?
If you had a single airline in the whole country, it would be very efficient. You could fly anywhere you wanted on a single airline.
That would mean no more cream skimming. The government would have a duty to serve everywhere, like the post office. A nationalized airline could also have fair and transparent ticket prices based on what it actually costs to operate. No dynamic pricing.
Wouldn't that go? Didn't you just say they lose money? Wouldn't that go up?
That ticket prices go up? Not necessarily. If you look
Oh, not necessarily. Let's see.
they were actually already falling more rapidly than after. And study after study has found that if the feds continued to enforce their ticket pricing formula, regulation would have offered lower fares than the free market. Most importantly, a nationalized airline would be accountable to us. We can set quality of service standards.
Hold on. Study after study. Do they actually cite anything?
Regulation. They were actually already falling.
I mean, potentially this. Source Airlines for America Bureau of Transport. Okay, that looks like they made it themselves then.
More rapidly than after. And study after study has found that if the feds had continued to
don't want hobos in the store, all prices go to infinity for that moment, no problem. I don't think that's not really what I mean, a hobo is going to have a lower willingness to pay anyway, but I don't think that's really typically what dynamic pricing is. Again, it's going to be some way of trying to match what that hobo's willingness to pay is. You wouldn't be like for every. I don't take dynamic pricing to mean like I don't want some not externality, but like I don't want like some group of people in my business. Therefore, I'm going to try to exclude them from my business by charging them higher prices. I think that's just like price discrimination in the evil sense, right? I take it to mean adjusting prices based on people's individuals like willingness to pay, and I'm sure that's going to correlate sometimes with you know, everything I mentioned before, but it's not like done. It's not done with the intention of like getting rid of certain people and not serving certain people, and it's not done so that they don't buy something. It's done so that they still do like buy something, and you just are getting closer to their willingness to pay.
Force their ticket pricing formula, regulation would have offered lower fares than the free market. Most importantly, a nationalized airline would be accountable to us. We can set quality of service standards like minimum seat sizes, baggage allowances, and refund and rebooking policies.
Yes, I need this. Decided by
our private airline
Pete Buttigieg.
Of dollars in bailouts, and we have no control over how they operate or what they do with that money. Over the past 10 years, the biggest US airlines spent 96% of free cash flow on buying back their own shares. A nationalized airline wouldn't need.
What I look up? Ticket price, airline ticket price. Formula. Regulated airline ticket price formula versus private sector prices.
Or concern itself with shareholders, so it can use revenue for technological innovation and a rainy day fund so they don't go bankrupt during lean years.
Actually, we deep. Well, if you are dynamically pricing a store's entrance, then I guess you could do that. And I think, again, I don't think it'd be good to like intentionally do that type of thing or whatever. I'm probably being against that. But if there's just merely like some correlation based on probably just some underlying like cultural thing, I don't think that's bad.
Some existing alongside private ones, but the key is that they all need to be regulated on certain things.
When you have a system where the prices are regulated, the airlines still compete, but now they're competing for quality of service.
As for Southwest and the low-cost carriers they inspired, many.
Don't we think that probably it could also limit airlines in a number of ways? It's probably that's just some general
many countries run now
loss in either it depends how you do it, but in quantity supplied.
Key is that they all need to be regulated on certain things.
When you have a system where the prices are regulated, the airlines still compete, but now they're competing for quality of service.
As for Southwest and the low-cost carriers they inspired, many of them today are fighting bankruptcy.
Also, why would I'm not certain that's the case, considering your standard model. If you did like a straight up price cap or whatever, like very basic stuff that probably is obviously not going to realistically apply 1-to-1 in this case or whatever. You're increasing both quantity demanded and quantity consumed, so the quality of the good can go down, and consumers are still willing to buy that good at the lower price because it has the lower price, right? Like.
Or trying to consolidate. It's no surprise then that Southwest was recently bought by.
I'd allow it actually, but you'd call me evil. I want less regulation. Whoa.
investors, which explains why they've gotten rid of so many of their pro-customer policies, are chasing premium passengers, and moving away from their direct route flights towards a hub-and-spoke system. Last year, they laid off employees for the first time in 53 years. Their business model just doesn't work in an unregulated airline industry which favors scale and consolidation. With regulation, we can bring back an era of flying that is comfortable and affordable.
Is that why we...
Scale and consolidation. With regulation, we can bring back an era of flying that is comfortable and affordable for all Americans. Thank you for watching The Classroom. We're always looking to tell...
You know, some parts of it weren't as bad as I expected it to be. But only because they, like, front load. It's crazy, like, 3 different times they're, like, front loaded the, like, airlines used to be so great. And then they go, and they epically debunk themselves. They're like, oh, actually, like, only rich people are flying on them. They do kind of the same thing with the price of, or the revenue per passenger. And they do semi the same thing with the, then talking about how a lot of airlines, like, lose money on the seats themselves and make it up for it with the, like, loyalty program.
When you use your credit card to buy, like, a $2,000 couch, Citibank would give you $2,000.
And again, the gall of them posting this on their Instagram again after the after Spirit Airlines. Oh my god. Okay, I don't know what actually, you know, I bet if I asked ChatGPT, you could find potentially some of the studies they were talking about allegedly that exist.
Right?
For me. All right, we might not watch all this. I might get bored of this because I bet it's gonna be stupid shit. But this happened earlier today. Michael Knowles versus Mehdi Hassan.
This conversation is Ella Klinsky, a 26
Oof, this one worried me.
New York City,
How so?
politics, philosophy, and economics. Without further ado, please join me in extending a warm welcome to Michael Knowles, Mehdi Hassan, and Ella Klinsky.
Thank you both so much for being here. I can only hope that one day I have as impressive an intro as you guys.
It's all on my timeline, but both can be willing.
And thank you so much to the audience and to everyone watching online.
What?
The way this debate will function is we will begin by doing a moderated Q&A, where I will ask a question directed at one of you. We will alternate who begins every question. And we will each have the opportunity to give a 2-minute response, and then whoever started will have time for a 1-minute rebuttal. And then after the moderated Q&A, we will switch over to audience questions. So start getting them ready. So to start off, before we get into specific issues, I would like to start with a foundational question. What, in practical terms, do you believe it means for a president to uphold or deviate from the Constitution? And does this differ from upholding constitutional norms? If so, how? We'll start with you, Matt.
Oh boy. But oh my god, I'm slurring my speech. Sorry, I'm drunk got up. Oh, wild in. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I expect Mehdi Hassan to do well. I don't think there's going to be much I disagree with Mehdi Hassan on here. I think he's probably going to do pretty well too. He's like pretty good on like rhetoric stuff or whatever. Obviously, Mehdi Hassan is like one like political pundit guy, dude. Oh, localist, the Constitution, true. I don't think he. I'm like when Mehdi Hassan is like talking about an issue. A lot of times I think he's like knowledgeable, but like it's because he has to keep up with the news cycle so much, and you know he knows enough to debate these people and everything, and he does a good job. But it's not like he's an expert in any particular thing, I don't think. But yeah, he's really good on the rhetoric, and I expect him to do well here. He's more progressive than me, obviously, as well, but good on rhetoric has no correlation with good on substance. It almost certainly has some correlation, but why didn't they get a localist to debate this? For sure, Michael Knowles' first thing has to be the border, right? He's gonna say it's treason that Biden left the border open.
Yeah, so thank you.
I'm starting with Mehdi, though.
I'm actually disappointed with that vote of 78-22, because you know what they say, the only way for me is down. Yeah, so good luck to me. I would say constitutional norms are very vague. I'm not sure actually what that means, apart from a historical precedent, what other people have done. And I think tonight, I'm guessing, and Michael can tell me I'm wrong, that a lot of Michael's argument will be, well, other presidents did this, a lot of whataboutism, a lot of see what X did, see what Y did, see what Obama did, see what Biden did. And I think we just have to be very clear here. We're talking about Donald Trump today. Donald Trump is sui generis. There's never been a president like him before, certainly not in our lifetimes. He's undeniably violating both constitutional norms, i.e. precedent, but also the Constitution, the amendments, the articles of the Constitution in this country. He's doing it all the time. At this point, at this stage, anyone who tells you Donald Trump is not violating the Constitution is gaslighting you.
He's good because he's on your team. Gotcha.
The fact of
That I don't think I said. I mean, I might think, you know, depending on, like, I think it's probably a net positive, right? And that is not, I don't think it's a fair characterization to say, like, he's good because he's on your team. Like, I think there are people who are like bad faith actors and are probably not like net good for the political system, even if they're on my team, because like their bad faith or whatever is just like toxic and just not good for the overall state of the world. But insofar as Mehdi is like promoting good ideas, I don't have any problem with that. And insofar as he's like, you know, more skillful in rhetoric than he is like knowledgeable, I still think he is semi decently knowledgeable in most things, at least. I think he's very knowledgeable about like a lot of the like actual kind of political events. You know, he seems to follow the news cycle very well and such. So I think he's very knowledgeable about that stuff. I don't have any issue with him doing that. I think probably that stuff is probably not good.
very clear. We can go through them in order. I mean, right now, if you look at the Constitution, Donald Trump is violating the Appropriations Clause, the Emoluments Clause, the Elections Clause, the Taxing and Spending Clause, the Take Care Clause, the Declare War Clause. He's also violating the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, maybe soon the 22nd Amendment, as he suggested yesterday. And, you know, yes, other presidents...
Oh, no, he said 22nd Amendment. Now Michael knows what to say. That was just a joke, guys.
...question have violated norms. Other presidents...
One of the most annoying journalists, plus not American. Incredible.
Certainly not in modern American history, has launched a multi-pronged, across-the-board, open assault on, forget norms, on the amendments and articles of our Constitution in the space of less than 18 months, right? Yes, previous presidents have violated perhaps a single constitutional amendment, sure, and been called out for it. But none of them said they plan to terminate the Constitution, as Donald Trump did.
Oh.
None of them said...
Who is coughing so much in this video?
Meet the press last year. Is it the job of the president to uphold the Constitution? I don't know, he said. None of them declared themselves to be a king or a dictator, even for a day. None of them were rebuked by their own vice president for trying to violate the Constitution and the rule of law. What did Mike Pence say? I know Michael's a big fan of Mike Pence. I came especially with a Mike Pence quote. Mike Pence said, President Trump demanded, I choose between him and our Constitution. If you are pressuring your own vice president to put you above your Constitution, you're not just...
He's nationalized, I believe. I have no problem with,
and it is very clear
with place of origin. I take issue with his disdain for our country. I don't think he has disdain for our country. In what way? I think, like, to some degree, he might be motivated by, but I don't even think this is, like, he's pro-Ukraine, isn't he? For the most part, at least? What's the disdain he has for our country?
Amendments of the Constitution.
But yeah, he is a, was he a British citizen by birth?
To our rights and liberties, to our democracy.
But he is he became an American citizen, I know.
Mike Pence's.
The Mike Pence standard of constitutional jurisprudence. Okay, wonderful to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Because Mike Pence was the only person who could ever said that the actions there would have been unconstitutional. By the way, Mike Pence relied on his legal counsel. They get a lawyer like Greg Jacobs. I think it's just Greg Jacob. He talked to a lot. He called, I forget who exactly, he called other previous vice presidents to consult them on the issue. And they all agreed that it would not be constitutional for Pence to do what Trump asked of him to do. There's also just like, I think it's just like a kind of crazy reductio to say, like, if it is constitutional that the vice president could do something like that, like that's like, I think that alone is like a reductio against a position of it being true. But, you know, Pence is 100% correct. It's a good metric in hindsight. Obviously it's also in no world where we have like Biden's VP, you know, Kamala Harris saying Biden was going to violate the Constitution or we asked her to violate the Constitution, right? Like we would never ever accept, he would never ever say that. Because obviously someone who was like, directly asked to do something, who was in all these meetings and such, is good. If he states something to that effect, that's a very serious deal. That is evidence of it violating the Constitution.
My father is a Dartmouth graduate, so I hope I don't do the family too much shame this evening. But I don't think I will, because we have to Mehdi's point, we have to narrow in on what exactly we're discussing. What does it mean to uphold the Constitution? And I
guys, just watch Andrew Wilson.
hope that my opponent here does not mean some kind of pedantic literalism that merely looks at the text of the Constitution, though we should certainly do that as well. But to uphold the Constitution, it would seem to me, would entail upholding what the Constitution has meant, how the Constitution has.
Oh my God.
Is in fact
Yes, get to the border, get to the border, get to the border, get to the border. Fauna, you said that Chevron was overturned. I don't have a strong position on it. I think like I'm generally pretty pro administrative state, pretty pro deep state. Okay, listen, I'm the deep state liberal. That used to be on some of my branding. I think it's still like my offline screen on like Twitch and Kick and stuff. I'm not certain about Chevron though. I don't know.
Our country from the beginning.
Thanks for following, Alex Reed. I appreciate it.
Through the present. And so I think my opponent here is
it's a lot. Let's go.
Break me away from citing historical precedent. Now, other presidents have upheld the Constitution. And I think that's for very good reason. If I were in your shoes, I would do the very same. Because when you look at how the Constitution has in fact been put into effect in the United States, no reasonable person could even suggest that Trump is not upholding it. If we were to use this.
Sorry, did he say no reasonable person could believe that Trump is upholding it or not upholding it?
No reasonable person could even suggest that Trump is not upholding it. If we were to.
I think he said not upholding it, but I can't hear.
No reasonable person could even suggest that Trump is not upholding it. If we were to.
Someone's right next to the microphone fucking coughing.
Constitution.
Chevron deference, which just says undercutting of our system, just less direct and more widespread. Like I said, I don't know for sure. I think. What do you mean just as much of an undercutting it? What is the system we're talking about here? He said upholding? I can't tell.
If we were to use this very limited pedantic literalist reading of the Constitution, then we would have to disqualify virtually every single president we've ever had. This is no reasonable person could even suggest that Trump is not upholding it. If we were to use this very pedantic literalist reading of the Constitution, then we would have to disqualify virtually every single president we've ever had from upholding the Constitution. All the modern presidents.
Legislating from the exec.
Surveilled.
Oh, well, I agree. Like, it obviously gave executive administrative agencies like more power or whatever. I'm not certain that it was like not like it was opposed to our constitutional principles fundamentally or like in a major way or whatever, right? I don't know the full obviously got overturned, but I don't know the full arguments on either side of that. I'm sure, I mean, it had to be instated in the first place. I'm sure there was some reasonable argument for it being the case or whatever, but I just don't think it's who lets the person next to the mic. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't even understand. They have lav mics. Like, I don't know what. I don't know what they're doing.
All of the great.
I don't know what mic is even picking up the coughing.
Who have violated habeas corpus, who have interned people, two great presidents and two great parties, the Republican Abraham Lincoln and the Democrat Franklin Roosevelt. But going back even further, we would have to disqualify Jefferson for the Louisiana Purchase. We would actually have to disqualify President Washington because President Washington declared neutrality in the French Revolutionary Wars, and he was accused of violating the Constitution by no less a man than James Madison, the father of the Constitution. But Madison gets his comeuppance because Madison would be accused of failing to uphold the Constitution when he annexed West Florida. So I think when we take a look at what the Constitution has meant, how it has been interpreted by
I don't think I'm familiar with this one.
Supreme Court, laws enacted by the Congress, and then of course the executive power in the president, we will
by name at least.
The Constitution prevails. The warnings of the histrionic critics of President Trump, who have been promising us that he's on the brink of shredding the Constitution for about 10 years now, any day now, it's coming. I think we will find that President Trump is indeed the president, and the Constitution, nevertheless, and I think very much for that reason, prevails.
Would you like to respond?
Oh my God, there's like multiple people coughing. I don't recognize this one by name or whatever. I might recognize. Commerce Clause gives Congress the power to regulate prices in the industry as long as rationally related to the legitimate goal. Well, yeah, I totally missed it. Swinging a miss. Close enough. You got it eventually. So it's funny watching presidential campaigns run on legislation and policy positions. Your job is to execute laws, not make them. Wow. Wow. I never considered this. Things I've seen it before. Didn't know that. And didn't know what. Yeah.
The best thing about social media is you can see what's going on in the world.
He wasn't selling across state lines. And underneath, I mean, my understanding is the Commerce Clause has been interpreted pretty broadly. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the arguments. side of that shit, and like I think a lot of things are just like probably not good. And maybe it makes sense to have the legal system be permissive of things that are just like, you know, net positives that are semi-iffy sometimes. I think as a general principle, you should probably try to avoid that, but like probably it's the case that some things are worth doing that for or whatever. Like it seems like even the Supreme Court is not going to be open ever to like giving the president control over the Fed, hopefully at least. It seems like they've signaled as much. Usually what wouldn't count as ICC ISC at this point? I'm not sure.
The tweet. Tim Pool, another podcaster some of you may know, posted what looked like a grok-generated list of previous presidents who had violated the Constitution. So I was able to prep myself for the debate, knowing that Michael would...
Well, I don't know. Hasn't there been like gun control stuff struck down by it? Wasn't there a case called like fucking Hamburger v. someone?
All of those examples, which he did. Thomas Jefferson, Louisiana Purchase, ratified by Congress. Abraham Lincoln and FDR, Civil War and World War II. I don't see either of those things happening right now. We can go through the list. I've already conceded that previous presidents have done unconstitutional things, but Donald Trump has done it in a way that no other president has, in a time frame no other president has, without the excuses that other presidents could at least point to. World War II and the Civil War. You think that's what's happening in America right now when he goes after migrants in Home Depot parking lots? No, that is not what's happening right now. And let's just be very clear. Michael says no one could dispute that he's upholding the Constitution. He says histrionics. Do you know who Terry Doughty and Nancy Brazel and Amy St. Eve and Trevor McFadden and go through the list, Daniel Rodriguez, Fernando Rodriguez Jr., Alan Albright, Eric Committee, Carl Dudek, Justin Lang.
Hold on, I might have been thinking of this, which is not Hamburger. I swear there was a case that was like it's something like the federal government wanted to like make old schools like gun-free zones or whatever, and they relied partially on the Commerce Clause to do it, I think. And the Supreme Court said, nah, I can't do that.
Go through the list. You know who these people are? They are Trump-appointed judges who have ruled against Donald Trump since last January in key constitutional cases. First Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, 14th Amendment. They've all said Donald Trump, what he's doing is violating the Constitution. These people are not liberals or Marxists, as Stephen Miller says. They're not doing histrionics, as Michael says. They are looking at the Constitution. And even as MAGA judges, they're saying you've gone too far. You have violated these amendments of the Constitution. It's Trump judges saying this.
I debate Andy, is 2x. Are you actually absorbing information anymore? Never.
Me. It's Mike Pence saying this, not me. Michael can make these arguments about liberal histrionics. The problem is now is that people with eyes and ears who are not MAGA partisans see what is happening here. Donald Trump is doing things the president has not done before, including ignoring a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling.
Okay. Let's try our hardest. The next questions really adhere to time regulations.
It's right there. Oh,
it's right there.
I saw it. And defied it.
Thank you so much for those thoughts. That was really interesting. Maddie, I know you talked about ICE immigration, and actually in 2025, the Department of Homeland Security recorded record-breaking immigration and enforcement actions with over 600,000.
Oh wait, we might still get the pivot to the border.
Deportations. Given this information, should undocumented immigrants have a right to due process under the Constitution? And if so, can deportations at the rate completed in 2025 be carried out without compromising access to hearings and legal representation? We'll start with you, Michael.
Sure. Yes. In most cases, the foreigners who are being deported are entitled to due process of the law. This is not the case necessarily.
What do you mean in most cases?
Revocation of visas, which are not some natural or constitutional right. But in the case of the people who are being deported.
Yeah, but you still have, they're like justified or like unconstitutional reasons that you can revoke people's visas for, right? Like if they're being revoked for constitutionally protected speech, that's at least a violation of like the norm, even if not directly unconstitutional. I think it probably is directly unconstitutional, but and why the fuck is possession illegal to begin with? I mean, you want to have a punishment for carrying drugs in the event of, I mean, that discourages people using drugs, supposedly at least.
They are entitled to due process, and they are receiving process, actually, from President Trump. But
I don't know. There's some funny Supreme Court rulings about that. It's actually 2 of them. They said that's actually not. It actually wasn't the case for some of them. So
the process is created equal, and the immigration and nationality.
That's true, but there's still some fundamental level of due process that they're all entitled to. Kind of crazy. Trump managed to violate even the low-level one with the Alien Enemies Act.
For some 60 years and in other forms for longer, recognizes that there is a role for expedited deportations. And it's not only who's insisted upon this, but it's all of his recent predecessors, going back to Bill Clinton and George Bush.
That's crazy how, like, Obama was able to do expedited removal, like, without violating those rights. But Donald Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act and did removals that violated people's due process rights.
Barack Obama, who he contradicts himself sometimes. The Democrats, when they want to appeal to the people who voted for the mass deportations, and in the public vote, they pretend that Barack Obama deported lots and lots of people, as many as Trump. But then when they want to say,
how many people have communism killed on Fun 420? I just don't think it makes sense to. It's just like too broad and too sensitive to what you mean by killed and what you mean by communism to be like that meaningful of a question. I don't give a fuck. Like, there have been certain types of starvation, famines caused by the collectivization of farming. I think that much is true. I think attributing like a bunch of deaths overall to like some system overall, I think that's just going to be, again, too sensitive to what you mean by certain terms to be that meaningful. Did you hear a recent SCOTUS session on gun possession versus drug possession? I didn't hear that, no. Do you know how much our founders drank? They were perfectly upstanding people. Real. Didn't Lincoln smoke weed? Or is that a meme? You guys seen The Civil War and Drugs? That's a good movie. You guys seen I'm gonna get coffee struck for this. Non-fun stream takedown imminent.
The name is George Washington, but it's the general to you. Or you could call me President 1, not 3 or 2. And you probably heard a lot of silly stories about me, but let me lay it down how raw I really used to be. I got a hemp operation back at the plantation, selling the stickiest shit around the new nation. So come run and find me if you want to get high.
This is where I'm getting all my information from, so.
Cause honestly, I got the bombest, I cannot tell a lie. Pick it dry, of course I'm gonna try. Bag it up and break it and then just.
Lincoln's in here too.
So high, I'm surprised it makes sense, but we find these truths to be self-evident. It goes puff, puff, pass, the next round you get skipped.
Abe Lincoln, I know what you're thinking. Greatest president ever, I'll have what he's drinking. Yeah, well see, that's where you'd be wrong, cause if you wanna chill with me, you better go and grab that bomb. Or an apple or a can, see you do not understand. Faded 24/7, cause that's just the way I am. I can see you're having a little
And clearly this is all true.
trouble believing me, then check this letter that I wrote, recorded down in history. Ahem. 2 of my favorite things are sitting on my porch and smoking a pipe of that sweet hemp. Of course, that's a quote that I wrote while I was still in office, but enough of that, I am too high.
They wouldn't have said that if it wasn't entirely true. Hemp has always been grown in the U.S. Well, yeah, it was used to make paper, wasn't it? Non-fun, why did you stop smoking? I've never smoked. Oh, Ian Hartman. Wow. Imagine how much safer the U.S. would be right now if he had. What? If who had what?
The deportations were unconstitutional. Really,
and all the money we could have saved
and Trump
on welfare spending.
My opponent.
Oh, I think he's probably, Ian Hartman's probably a little bit behind. He's probably hearing me talk about the border right now or something. Non-fun, would you vote libertarian if they legalized drugs just one time? Probably not. I'm not even like that. Like, I'm not like crazy pro legalization or whatever. I don't know exactly where I stand on stuff. I mean, probably weed should be legal. I think probably that. I think for the most part, drugs are just kind of like bad though. I don't know the best method to deter their use or to regulate them or whatever, but I don't know, probably just like alcohol, pretty bad. Weed is probably like bad, but probably not as bad as alcohol.
Says that no one has acted as quickly in these egregious displays as President Trump. That, of course, is facially absurd because President Trump
helps break up black markets, or so Switzerland says. Sure, but it probably also, and I think, like that is a good thing that's good to do, and that could potentially outweigh some of the other potential negative things or whatever. But probably it is just going to increase the consumption of them, the prevalence of them, by making it more, decreasing the penalty for doing it, by making it more socially acceptable over time to do it.
To win a non-consecutive second term, so he's just had longer than any other president other than FDR.
Oh, and how do you know whether weed or alcohol are better or worse? You've never even, with regard to the health outcomes and the externalities on other people, it's what I mean, right? my understanding is that alcohol has much worse long-term health outcomes from consistent consumption of it than smoking marijuana does, and that the like potential negative effects on other people are not as bad with weed as they are with like alcohol. Like alcohol tends to make you like more violent. Like you get fucking drunk and you beat your wife. Weed is less likely to do that.
But regardless, they do have due process. He is following that.
Depends how much you use. Well, we're just talking, you know, again, like on average here.
Really could be much larger. Let's not forget the great Democrat President Truman, who deported near 750,000 foreigners, Mexicans. He did so with scanty.
Yes, let's go back to Truman.
Following President Eisenhower in 1954, deported 1.1 million in Operation Wetback. There was not even really the suggestion that either of those men had violated the law by deporting foreigners who don't really have any right to be here. So President Trump is very much within the...
No one is saying that deportations themselves aren't violations of the law. You can obviously do deportations that are legal. That's not what we're talking about here.
Of the Constitution.
So I would guess that there had to be some court cases about a lot of that stuff. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Deportations, and frankly, I wish you were more.
So just to respond very quickly on the main point about deporting foreigners, you said at the end, who have no right to be here. Notice the phrasing. Deporting foreigners have no right to be here. How do we know they have no right to be here unless they have due process? That's the whole point. When you
oh my God.
American citizens.
Well, the numbers under Eisenhower are inaccurate because he kind of had the border locked down and turned people away at the border. I'm familiar with like Obama instead of literally deporting them. Yeah, I'm familiar with like some of the deportations that people count as Obama or whatever really are probably better classified as the kind of like turnaways where they, you know, are essentially just turned away at the border. This is like just factcheck.org. I don't think he said 13 million to be fair, right?
You know, very much not even really the suggestion that either of those men had violated the law. The mass deportations really could be much larger. Let's not forget the great Democrat President Truman, who deported near 750,000 foreigners, Mexicans. He did so with scanty due process of the law. That was in 52. Following President Eisenhower in 1954, deported 1.1 million in Operation Wetback. There was
he said 1.1 million. Well, I said the name. I bet it, like, if I just look up Operation Wetback court cases. I'm not certain that this is necessarily what I want. I'll probably mention it here, right? Are these all about the deportations here? Thanks for following, Sour Knight. I appreciate it. What's up? 1.1 million is insane. Back then, I'm guessing a lot of it was like turnaround stuff too. I'm pretty sure many were for forced removals and not just of illegal immigrants. With regards to who? With regards to Obama or with regards to what we're looking at right now? Do you have a job yet? Exclamation point TTS in the chat, guys. Let's get some. Can we get some? Drop a Prime sub. Can we drop some YouTube memberships? Can we get some gifted? I think I can gift them. Yeah, you guys want subs or memberships? Congratulations! I have more. I have some more free ones. Did anyone in chat get one? That looks like it just gave to totally. It just gave to no one who is here right now. At least no one who's chatting right now. All right, we get another shot. Let's see. Damn. How does it do such a horrible job at deciding who gets one? Like, it's possible some of these people are lurking, I guess. People do that, especially on YouTube. but it's so bad.
That either of those men had violated the law by deporting foreigners who don't really have any right to be here. So President Trump is very much within the mainstream of the Constitution in his deportations, and frankly, I wish he were more aggressive.
So just to respond very quickly on the main point about deporting foreigners, you said at the end, who have no right to be here. Notice the phrasing. Deporting foreigners have no right to be here. How do we know they have no right to be here unless they have due process? That's the whole point. When you end up deporting American citizens, you know they deported American citizens. Terry Doughty is a Trump judge who last year ruled that a two-year-old American child who was deported with her mother against their father's wishes, who was in the US.
Why? I mean, this might be the most salient rhetorically. I don't know, but I feel like the Alien and Enemies Act deportations are more clearly like a violation of due process, kind of worse than that. Biden opted to send people back instead of deporting them because he doesn't like deporting ban you from re-entering for a bit. Oh, real. Okay. Trump would be all right if not for his first priority to serve the Jews. Incredible. What's this debate about? They're debating whether Trump is violating constitutional norms.
And the administration just deported an American citizen without any meaningful process. That was a Trump judge.
I mean, Kamala wouldn't have been any better. With regards to, would he say this or whatever, you don't think she would have at least been better with regards to, like, Israel? Kamala Harris. Wow, true. Like, I don't think we'd be at war of Iran right now if Kamala Harris was president. I think maybe the midnight, not one of huge Biden stand. Real, it's true. Obviously. Maybe we would have done the like midnight hammer strikes on the nuclear facilities, but I don't think we do anything more than that if Kamala was president. And I think she probably would have been much tougher on Netanyahu than Trump has been. I mean, a woman is literally married to, yeah, incredible. And she said, oh, wow, that's true. She said, she's woke. She says a lot of things to appeal to everyone. Didn't she do, am I making this up? Didn't she do this with her husband for a video? Mehdi should have his H-1B revoked and be deported and sent back to Israel. Nice one, dog. Nice one, dog. Wait, why do I?
Right? In Minnesota, another Trump judge, her name is Nancy Brazel, appointed by Donald Trump. She said, the government asserts the right to arrest.
What was the historical principle surrounding dangerous substances, intoxicating substances? And when you have a tradition...
I just want to, before we lose track of what Justice Sotomayor is talking about, one can ask whether the habitual drunkard statutes are sufficiently, how and why is sufficiently analogous. One could also ask, though, more basically, whether this defendant would qualify as an habitual user. And I want to explore that before we lose track of it. Habitual drunkard, the American Temperance Society back in the day said 8 shots of whiskey a day only made you an occasional drunkard. We have to remember the founding era if you want to invoke the founding era. To be a habitual drunkard, you had to do double that, okay? John Adams took a tankard of hard cider with his breakfast every day. James Madison reportedly drank a pint of whiskey every day. Thomas Jefferson said he wasn't much of a...
Oh, you just want me to...
Alcohol. He only had 3 or 4 glasses of wine a night. Okay? Are they all habitual drunkards who would be properly disarmed for life under your theory?
No, and again, I think this is something...
Okay, if they're not.
He's explaining how much our founding fathers drinking to drugs. Let's go.
A few times, about every other day. That's all we have on the record, right?
That's all we have.
Okay, so we don't even know the quantity of how much he uses every other day. What if he took one gummy bear with a medical...
Wow.
Thousands of people, put them in an overcrowded warehouse, and then deny them their rights to due process. That's Nancy Brazel ruling against this administration.
Does someone who violated a fake law deserve rights? You know what's funny, localist? I think that this is exactly the same statement that like a leftist would make about like illegal immigrants being deported too. Like, does someone who violated an arbitrary fake line not deserve the right to come to our country?
Grounds. Again, Trump judges. Michael seems to be under some illusion that we're here to debate Democrats versus Republicans. Unlike Michael, I'm not a partisan. I'm not here to blindly defend Democratic presidents. I don't really care.
Unfortunately, alcohol is bad. Don't know what to tell you.
I already conceded. Presidents have done bad things, but no one has done stuff like Trump. Let me give you one example. 18 months he's been in office. 18 months. He's defied court cases, defied court orders. In 1 in 8 cases, AP just did a story, the Associated Press the other day, 31 court cases that he lost, he's just ignoring the court orders. Presidents haven't done that before. They violated the Constitution, then a court says, hey, you did...
Like, someone else is probably more ambiguous than that, to be fair, but Ali, certainly at least challenging some of the norms, even with regards to like the Borisburg case or whatever, where there was a verbal order to not depart any more planes with the deportees on them, and it seems like they did that anyway.
They don't say F off to the judges. That is what this president does. Let me give
you like that, Nafon? Like what? Oh, do you prefer hard on crime presidents like Bill Clinton or just kind of a normal president in that regard. I wouldn't say I'm like hard on crime. I think it'd be fair to classify me as like necessarily tough on crime or anything, but I prefer like a not defund the police candidate.
February of this year, according to a recent study, hundreds of judges across the country ruled 4,400 times. I'm going to say that again. 4,400 times judges across this country ruled that Donald Trump and his administration were illegally detaining migrants in this country without due process. 4,400 times. You find me another president, I'll wait here all day, who's done that in a 4-month period. 4,400 rulings by judges. By the way, in 1 in 4 cases where judges rule against Trump...
All because of the evil deep state.
Miller and co, these are all Marxists. No, these are judges, conservatives, liberals, Democrats, Republicans, saying Donald Trump's violating the law even when it comes to migrants, even when it comes to foreign students who have a right to be here and have a free speech rights under the Constitution. First Amendment covers foreign students in this room. I hope foreign students here know that.
I'm a little confused by my opponent's argument because he tells me he's not a partisan and he's not here to debate Republicans and Democrats. Almost the very first word out of his mouth was Mike Pence and appealing to all of these Republican judges. But listen, I think the Republican Party is the worst party in the United States other than the Democrats. So, I'm not here to, as my opponent does seem to be, to go tit for tat on Republicans versus Democrats. We're here to talk about the Constitution. And we can't talk about how the Constitution has actually governed the country unless we talk about the people who have effected it. And those people are Republicans and are Democrats. But I'm also confused by my opponent's reaction. And I think this might be because my opponent here has the misfortune of growing up in a foreign country.
Did Obama do anything better than Biden non-fun? I'd have to think about it. Probably. Well, almost certainly. I just can't think about it at the top of my mind. I don't know. I mean, like maybe the border stuff, but I feel like I'm not entirely sure on that either. It's just because Obama probably did do some stuff that was bad in terms of kids in cages, but it's just in general terms of the welfare of migrants who were trying to claim asylum. I don't know. I can think of things ACA, but Biden never had that's a little bit hard because Biden never had that opportunity. I'm not I still think the ACA was probably net positive. I'm not entirely certain, but Biden never had an opportunity to do something like the ACA. So I don't know. It depends how I'm weighting that stuff. Specific to immigration, they just said in general. I mean, he was not old. he spoke better.
Or English, the United Kingdom.
He's more charismatic.
So maybe he misheard when I spoke. But I answered in the affirmative. Of course, illegal aliens in most cases have the right to due process, but they don't have the right.
I don't know what it means in most cases.
This has been a precedent for many decades, and have the right to due process, but they don't have the right to lengthy due process. This has been a precedent for many.
So isn't it kind of even more crazy that irrespective of the lower level of rights they have, that Trump was still able to violate that? If they're only guaranteed a much lesser standard, the fact that Trump was able to violate that is kind of crazy, kind of bad, kind of makes it worse for you. I am pro ACA. I'm sure you are, localist. Half my chats were centered. I think you need to change chat filter to all messages. Believe it or not, localist, you're never gonna believe this. You're never gonna believe this. It is on all messages. I've checked that before. Believe it or not. Believe it or not.
And in all of those cases, my opponent here cites the AP. This involves these problems with the courts generally involve delays more than outright refusals. And both Barack Obama and Joe Biden have also been guilty of the same delays. So I'm happy that in this one case we're in agreement. The illegal aliens deserve due process, and now that they have it, they need to get out.
Michael, that's the problem.
Okay. Well.
But they weren't. They were gotten out without it.
Remember,
and actually, most of them are back now. The people who were sent to CCOT.
Nice, respectful debate. And
your chat is exceptional confidentiality. I literally don't know what it is. Maybe I should contact users board because it's frustrating. I have all the moderation turned off, okay, and I've tested it when there were no bots added as admins, because even though I have some bots added as admins because they need to be able to send commands and stuff when people do that, but I disabled all of them and it still fucking did it. So I don't get it. I don't get it. I leave the benefit of the doubts that it's not by your choice. I don't know what else I do. Make me a mod. Maybe I won't get censored. I'm not making you a mod.
We can tell you we're keeping it respectful. I would love to now talk about Iran. It is top of the mind for a lot of people here, in the news, etc. Specifically, President Trump's Operation Epic Fury targeting Iran was carried out without prior authorization from Congress. This has reignited a long-standing constitutional.
I mean, this is probably the best case for Trump. We've granted presidents a lot of power on that one. So.
Over war powers. At the same time, President Trump has argued that involving Congress can pose.
Anyone who asks for mod is a bad mod. So
and the
true.
need for speed and national security decision.
I am a mod already. Not on YouTube. Not on Discord either, right? You might be a mod on. Are you a mod on Twitch? I don't think you are.
So the question is, how should we balance Congress's right to declare war with the practical demand of secrecy and rapid response in modern warfare, and with Trump's actions significant?
What about long-term supporters? Want to be my fourth? I'm Polly. You should dig it.
It's a great question, and I'm glad you mentioned the speed issue. Michael mentioned speed a moment ago when it came to migrants. There's no speed issue. Donald Trump bombed 7 countries last year after claiming to be the...
Twitch, yes, always been. I think you might be. Yeah, I might have made you a mod on Twitch a while ago.
Which weren't attacking us. He started this year by bombing Venezuela and kidnapping the president of that country. Again, not a country that was attacking us. There was no self-defense right, no UN resolution. You can only go to war in this country under international law if it's self-defense or if it's authorized by the UN. Not the case in Venezuela. Not the case in Iran. Iran obviously was not attacking us. We were in the middle of negotiations when we attacked them. And Marco Rubio admitted we attacked them because Israel was about to attack them, not they were about to attack us. So there was no speed. There was no justification. And it is a good question about the balance. And again, I suspect Michael is going to say, well, all previous presidents have declared war without congressional approval, which isn't true, by the way. George W. Bush. I'm going to go home and take a shower after this. But I'm going to defend George W. Bush. George W. Bush went and got an authorization for the use of military force against Afghanistan in 2001. He went and got an authorization for the use of military force against Iraq in 2002. Now I feel disgusting. But George Bush.
I don't know about George Bush, but we did also, like, Obama and, like, Trump in his first term, like, did airstrikes in, like, Libya. I'm not sure. Was there ever congressional authorization for Libya? There might have been. And, like, Somalia as well. Congress. Authorization. Libya. Oh, there was. Maybe. What is a current events article? Oh, no, that is... Never mind. Libya. Secretary of State testified to Congress in March 2011 that the Obama administration did not need congressional authorization for its military intervention in Libya or for further decisions about it, despite congressional objections from members of both parties that the administration was violating the War Powers Resolution. During unclassified briefing, she reportedly indicated that the administration would sidestep the resolution provisions regarding 60-day limit on unauthorized military actions. State Department publicly took a position in June 2011. There was no hostility in Libya within the meetings of the War Powers Resolution, contrary to legal interpretations by the DoD and Office of Legal Counsel. President Obama notified Congress that no authorization was needed. So yeah, I think we got in the way of some of the stuff before. Not to mention, you add up a strong prior at this point that I would use it appropriately, which basically never, but it does save people from censoring sometimes. I don't really, I mean, maybe. The Libya intervention didn't go far enough. True. We got permission from NATO. That's all that matters.
Did that, right? Barack Obama, when he was about to bomb Syria, tried to go to Congress, couldn't get the votes, did not bomb Syria. Now, Libya, Barack Obama did go and violate the Constitution and the War Powers Act. I will agree.
Okay, damn. Why do I look anything up myself? Okay, got it.
Well, let me say a couple of things here. Number one, Barack Obama, he would argue, let me make the case for why it's different, to go back to your question. There's no comparison between Iran and Libya. First, there was a UN resolution for Libya, which was being enforced by a NATO operation that the US joined to stop an imminent massacre of people in Benghazi. That was the stated aim. No UN approval in Iran, no NATO mission in Iran, no imminent massacre of civilians. That happened in Syria, not when we attacked. Number two, Barack Obama claimed it wasn't a war because it was a limited military operation because no American troops were at risk and no regional escalation. Well, in Iran, 13 Americans dead, hundreds of Americans injured. Not just regional escalation, but global fallout. Right? Americans suffering at the pump because of this war. And number three, I would say this. Look, this is undoubtedly unconstitutional against Congress. Donald Trump admitted it. He said, if I call it a war, I'll have to get approval. And then he called it a war. But I will agree it was unconstitutional under Obama. And I think it's unconstitutional under Trump. And I hope Michael will agree that we can both agree.
Not Fun isn't like the biggest Hillary fan. Hillary was based for calling, I don't know for certain this is true, but I forget what the source for this is. I believe it was someone internal to the White House said that after like the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, the first time like Hillary talked to Bill again was calling him to urge him to bomb Syria, or not Syria, sorry, Serbia. I that's true, at least in my head canon, regardless of what the facts actually say. But that's the most based thing she's ever done.
In both cases, neither president was upholding the Constitution. I'll add that to my list of constitutional abuses by Donald Trump tonight.
Can you agree?
Well, I'm just glad that my opponent continues to eschew comparisons to past presidents, the tit for tat between the Democrats and the Republicans. But you're right, I was going to bring up Libya because this involves not only
Reddit r/presidents. Okay, look at this high quality image. Must be from a high quality source. A biography of Hillary Clinton, written by Gail Sheehy and published in 1999, stated Ms. Clinton had refused to talk to the president for 8 months after the Monica Lewinsky scandal. She resumed talking to her husband only when she phoned him and urged him in the strongest terms to begin bombing Serbia. The president began bombing within 24 hours. Let's go.
Constitution, the War Powers Act. One thing it doesn't involve, though, I'm a little confused. Are we debating tonight UN resolutions? Are we debating the NATO Charter? I thought we were debating constitutionality, and I suspect that Mr. Hassan is deferring to these other organizations because there was not a great constitutional predicate for what happened in Libya. The War Powers Act gives the president the ability to wage war without the approval of Congress.
I don't know exactly the reason many appeal to them. I believe the U.S. does technically have like a legal obligation, even internally, to follow like treaties that it has ratified. I believe that is the case. That is my understanding. So maybe you could appeal to that.
60 days, and then it can be extended for an additional 30 days to take it.
You're right. I don't deserve it. I need to hold back my whole.
Already.
It's not that you don't deserve it. It's well, if you bribe me, then I'll consider it.
Constitutional predicate, particularly the military. However,
the real thing is like, many of the people who watch me, like, I would trust as mods, but I just can't have all of my viewers being mods. It looks a little weird when all my viewers are mods.
What Barack Obama did in Libya did not just go for 60 or 90 days. It went for 8 months. How about
Alphon can't see half my messages because he won't mod me. I don't know what it is. I'll email my YouTube support agent or whatever after the stream. I'll give it a shot.
Biden waged war in Yemen against the Houthis. That went on for a year. I didn't hear peep from people concerned about the shredding of the Constitution. But when it comes to the war in Iran, I'll put my...
Sorry, what was
did in Libya did not just go for 60 or 90 days. It went for 8 months. How about Joe Biden? Joe Biden waged war in Yemen against the Houthis. That went on for a year. I didn't hear peep from people concerned about the shredding of the Constitution. But when it comes to the war...
They're definitely like... It's not like the same level of attention paid to it. But I think, one, that's because Trump has like violated other constitutional norms, right? This is like a thing that he's kind of known for, that people like reporting on. And then two, it's just like a much bigger deal. It's just like much bigger in scale, the Iran war, than the sort of action against the Houthis or whatever. Certainly, for sure, you can find stuff out there complaining about that. I bet if I look up lawfare Biden Houthi strikes, Biden administration's options for skirting a war powers resolution deadline and its Houthi attacks. This might not necessarily be calling them illegal or whatever, but I would bet I can find someone complaining about this stuff. There are a decent amount of, what are not watchdogs, think tanks out there that comment on this stuff quite often. Same thing with immigration. You can find plenty of stuff from even fucking Amnesty International complaining about Obama's practices and his deportations.
I'll put my cards on the table. I was skeptical of the war before it began. I was skeptical when it was declared. I remain skeptical of it today. Happily for me, I don't need to convince you to support the war in Iran. It's a combination of the liberal pronunciation and the conservative pronunciation. Iran and Iran. I don't need to convince you to support the war. I don't need to convince you to like Donald Trump. I don't need to convince you this is a good military operation. I just need to show you that what Trump is doing is well within constitutional means. It's in fact much more restrained than anything his recent predecessors have done. I'll remind you that the past presidents, George W.
I don't even think the Iran thing is well more restrained than the previous interventions we've done without giving authorization from Congress.
accepted. We think of Ronald Reagan in Grenada. We think of George H.W. Bush in Panama. But we can go back even further than that. We go to Harry Truman, who waged a war in Korea that went on for 3 years without any formal declaration of war. So we can say that war is very bad and Trump shouldn't be in Iran. But the topic at hand is whether or not Trump is within the constitutional mainstream. And at that, he's actually quite moderate.
So, 60 seconds, let me just quickly respond. Number one, the bigger point, let me start with the bigger point, which is Michael's whataboutism tonight, which is keeping pointing to previous presidents. As I pointed out, the analogies don't work. They're not the same in many of the cases he's citing. And even if they were the same, all that would prove is that previous presidents didn't uphold the Constitution either. The debate tonight is Donald Trump upholding the Constitution. We can all agree he isn't. Michael seems to agree he isn't. His only defense is, well, other presidents didn't uphold it either. Let's just deal with some facts. The UN Charter is not some foreign body. The UN Charter was incorporated into US law as a treaty in a Senate vote in 1945 by a vote of 89-2.
Yeah, okay. That's why he's appealing to it.
The UN Charter and violated international law and US law by bombing Iran. He violated Congress by bombing Iran. And he violated the War Powers Act.
Bro, how the hell? They keep fucking up the camera. And I don't even know what microphone is picking up the people coughing, but they put a fucking lav mic on a fucking COVID-19 patient. And then the video is kind of small for you guys. I don't know if you can see it. The camera they're using has like fucking dirt in it. You can see there's like certain like white spots in it. And I think those stay exactly where they are when a camera moves. So they're like on the lens.
Give you the power to declare war without congressional approval. Exactly the opposite. It says if you go to war without congressional approval, which is wrong, you have to notify us within 48 hours. And then you have 60 days to stop, which he hasn't done. He crossed 60 days last week, so he's doubly illegal. In fact, Una Hathaway of Yale University, professor of international law, says this war is triply illegal because it's against the UN Charter, it's against US Congress's right under the Constitution, and it's against the War Powers Act. That doesn't apply to Libya, by the way. So Trump is unique there. And this idea that he was following Congress when he bombed Yemen last year, when he bombed Nigeria on Christmas Day, remember that? Probably not, because he bombed so many countries without congressional approval. The idea that he's upholding the Constitution while stealing Congress's right to declare war and bombing multiple countries is absurd.
I would like to stay on this foreign policy avenue and talk a little bit about Venezuela. So President Donald Trump characterized former Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro as, quote, terrorist, and cited his indictment on drug-related charges as justification for the U.S. military raid in Caracas in early 2026. By framing military action in Venezuela as a law enforcement action, does that expand presidential power in ways that unfairly bypass Congress, or is that a necessary adaptation to modern threats?
No, it's certainly not outside the norms. It doesn't expand presidential power. Toppling dictatorships in Latin America is as American as apple pie. I can't help but call this tactic that my opponent here is using. He keeps suggesting whataboutism because I'm making historical comparisons. And
what do you mean?
Presidents of both parties. I would like to point out my opponent opened the debate. He made the first statement, and he began by doing just that. So, and I think it's good that he did that actually, because there's no.
Wait, what did he do? What did Betty do a whataboutism with in his opening?
Means to uphold the Constitution without reference to history. And in the case of Latin America, obviously our history goes back a very long way. The Monroe Doctrine is a cornerstone, perhaps the cornerstone of American foreign policy. And there was a legal predicate in the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. In the case of President Trump's military...
You want to clip of Mehdi straight up saying he's a socialist? It's my understanding that Mehdi does identify as at least a leftist. I'm sure he said he's a socialist before.
It's worth observing that we never hear why he is engaging in these actions. In Nigeria, of course, why would you bomb Nigeria on Christmas Day? Might have to do with the genocide of Christians that is going on in Nigeria and America's role as the global hegemon, which again...
Trust me, it's anti-Trump, so you should enjoy that.
But returning to the specific topic at hand, Nicolas Maduro, it had been an aspect of American foreign policy for some 26 years to depose the regime in Venezuela. We had a legal reason to do it. Not only were they stealing our goods, but they were also sending criminals into our country, helping to flood our country, break our basic laws, and they were working with foreign organizations. So anyway... Slice of had the right
swords, please.
To do it. Not only were they stealing our goods, but they were also sending criminals into our country, helping to flood our country, break our basic laws, and they were working with designated foreign terrorist organizations. So anyway you slice it, we have
the cartels that Trump himself designated as foreign terrorist organizations as the justification in the first place. But it's not even the case that the government, I believe the State Department did not even agree that or it might have been the CIA. One of the agencies contradicted the other about whether or not the government was even actually in cahoots, or to what degree they were in cahoots with the cartels that Trump designated FTOs.
Had the right to arrest him. A lawless president would have just blown his head off, as we've done before. But President Trump did not do that. Nicolas Maduro is enjoying due process of law in New York City, and it's probably a much nicer place than Venezuela is. So I look forward to oil prices going down. I look forward to a flourishing country, and I look forward to the recognition.
Why do you expect any of that to happen? Considering not that I think there's been literally no change. I'm sure that the new leader of Venezuela, his vice president, is going to have to recognize that she's going to have to concede more to Trump or whatever, or risk, some more bad stuff happening. But why would we expect anything like this to happen? There's just no reason to believe that we're gonna see a huge, prosperous, free country now, or that oil prices are going to come down dramatically because of it.
that President Trump's policy in Venezuela is not only out of step with American constitutional norms, it is in fact part of American grand strategy dating back to 1999.
Prison in America is a nicer place than Venezuela.
Yeah.
I don't think that means it's not against constitutional norms or whatever.
Let's just deal with some issues that you raised there. Michael made an admission he perhaps shouldn't have made there. Do you notice what he said about Maduro? He said, a lawless president. His words. Am I being dishonest? Is that what you said? A lawless president.
Not with reference to Trump.
But you said a lawless president would have just killed him. That's funny, because what did we do in Iran on day one of that war? We killed the leader of Iran. So by Michael's definition, Donald Trump is a lawless president. He went to war in Iran without congressional approval, without a UN Security Council resolution, as we've already discussed. He went to war in Venezuela without a congressional approval or UN Security Council resolution. The idea that he did it because the guy's a drug trafficker is hilarious. I'm no defender of Maduro. Let's see what the court says. But he pardoned another Latin American head of government who was in American prison for cocaine trafficking into...
It will be really funny. It would be really funny if the charges against Maduro did not stick.
He pardoned him. So real...
I don't even know what the fuck would happen then.
When it comes to drug trafficking. As for Nigeria, number one, it's not a genocide of Christians. The first lady of Nigeria is a Christian. The defense minister is a Christian. Terrorist groups like ISIS in Nigeria and Boko Haram kill Muslims and Christians alike. It's a horrific violence, but it's not Christian genocide. No one actually believes that. And even if it was, that's not the debate. The debate is, did he have the legal right to bomb Nigeria, or did he have to go to Congress? Which he did not. He never goes to Congress. And let's take a step back here. Let's get out of the weeds here. What is the common thread tonight? It's not about just migrants or free speech or students or wars. It is about a president who doesn't just test the limit of the law. He puts himself above the law. Donald Trump doesn't recognize congressional restrictions. He doesn't recognize Supreme Court restrictions. Michael doesn't want to talk about a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling saying you got to facilitate the return of Kilmer Abrego Garcia. And Trump says to an ABC reporter, I could, but I'm not going to. No president has done that before. You want to play whataboutism? And it is whataboutism. Tell me, which president said after a 9-0 ruling, yeah, I'm not going to do it. There hasn't been one. It's only Donald Trump who does this when it comes to war, when it comes to migration, when it comes to Supreme Court. That is why we're saying he does not uphold the Constitution, because the evidence is clear. And if Trump were here tonight, he'd probably say, yeah, you're right.
Well, my opponent got a great laugh line just now, but unfortunately he only did so by misrepresenting the facts. Okay. When there's a difference between Venezuela and Iran, but furthermore, when we look at Iran...
Can I not move this?
We were not the ones that killed the Ayatollah. That was the Israelis, and my opponent loves to complain about the Israelis. Perhaps he can do it tonight or another time. But
Didn't we... I forget which, it was the Israelis that did the strike or whatever. It might have been their intelligence, but we cooperated with them in the assassination. In some manner. I don't know for certain if we could have stopped it or whatever, but... Why did joint operation by the... Oh, that's about the entire thing. Does not give me what I want. Oh, using strategic locations intelligence from the US's CIA. No, okay, never mind. It was, yeah. Jackson was a bit of a warmonger loon. Not gonna lie. I mean, unsurprising. That's my understanding. There's nothing we could have done. We could have done because we live under Zionist control. True. For one, I just don't think that's the case. Certainly, the Zionists probably have, more control, like when Trump is president. Like, part of the reason we went into Iran was because Bibi suggested that we should do so and that it would go well. And then also, if it relied to some degree on our intelligence, and even if that strike could have gone forward without our intelligence or cooperation, there are other Israeli actions that are probably going to happen without our cooperation, and you could conceivably stop many of those things.
Israelis who did it. So we do have to get basic facts right here. We provided air support.
Trump took credit for it, you know that.
Yeah, if we could avoid the interruption, I just want to point out that your laugh line was based on a complete misunderstanding of what actually happened. But I'll try to finish my point. So one, I think that gives you a good sense of where we stand on international expertise. Because also Venezuela is a different country from Iran. Iran has been waging war against the United States for some 50 years now. They obviously there were 200 American troops in the Beirut barracks bombings, and we have not retaliated for that in a serious way. Iran since then has killed many American troops throughout the Middle East. There was a very strong legal predicate for taking out the Ayatollah. Even
I guess maybe the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps has, maybe. I'm familiar, obviously, that Iran funds a lot of militia groups to do that for them. But I didn't think Iran directly had, but they might have. But the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, they might have killed U.S. servicemen at some point.
if you think it's not a prudential thing to do. Whereas the very different intervention into Venezuela involved orders from judges, involved the commission of crimes, and now there will be a trial in New York. So the one similarity between the two, and perhaps we can agree on this, is that the intervention into Venezuela was rather restrained. We didn't actually depose the regime. We just put a gun to the head of the deputy and said, play nice or it's going to be you next. And
okay, then why'd you say all those great things were going to happen?
I ran either.
This is like, I think it's fine to believe that things are going to get like better, but certainly not to the degree that you suggested.
Or expansive president might do that, as Republicans and Democrats have done. Trump, once again, I point out, is so restrained here, so moderate, so well within the mainstream that we aren't even seeing regime.
Yeah, I'll consider a localist.
Well,
for sure.
You mentioned the idea of emergency acts and extenuating circumstances, and I want to zoom in on that. President Donald Trump argued that his imposition of tariffs during Liberation Day was justified under the International Emergencies Economic Powers Act, or the IEEPA. However, the Supreme Court found the IEEPA does not authorize the president to impose sweeping tariffs such as that in Liberation Day. With this in mind, how should we think about...
I don't understand why the left should want a sovereign wealth fund. What is this? It's not necessary and probably one of the worst ways to go about securing the left's agenda. The problems in the United States do not stem from trying to manage resource booms, temporary trade surpluses, debt denominated outside our currency, or any of the traditional reasons for a sovereign wealth fund. Check DMs, babe. I have already checked our DMs, girl. Don't worry. Problems are systemic, and a sovereign wealth fund could easily amplify them. I recognize this guy's name. Where do I recognize this guy's name from? Oh, wait. This guy's a Substack. I read his Substack. Israelis congressmen be like, check DMs. This is true. The idea one continues to show up on the left. It is in all the market socialism literature of the 1990s. Hillary Clinton almost endorsed such an idea. Economist Noah Smith brings it up often. And now Matt Brunegg at a People's Policy Project has a big, well-designed launch for creating one, calling it the American Solidarity Fund. Journalist Rachel Cohen asked me to comment for her piece on the launch, and I gave her some critical ones. I thought I'd write out why here. If 3 potential economic objections of sound wealth from the left, it can increase spending, reduce inequality and the power of wealth owners, and regulate the activities of businesses. The sovereign wealth fund is not necessarily for any of these 3 goals. Worse, the sovereign wealth fund is a particularly weak way to bring about these changes. So what? A lot of policies are the best ones, but they can build up a movement. But third, there's good reason to think a sovereign wealth fund could easily backfire and make it harder to make progress in any of these goals. Since it's an unnecessary idea, poorly developed and prone to backfiring, it should not be a priority to left. Let's take these in turn. Okay, I'm interested. I don't see how, like, I mean, like, mechanically, I would imagine it's, like, basically always going to reduce wealth inequality, right? So, I don't know. We'll see. The United States needs to spend more money. It needs to spend more on a variety of goals, from basic income to infrastructure to removing key spheres of life like health and education from the market. Let's abstract from what form of spending what form that spending should take. Brunegg's American Solidarity Fund would pay into a basic income. But we can also imagine the profits of a sovereign wealth fund going to free college, the expansion of Medicare, or better infrastructure. A sovereign wealth fund is a terrible way to try and increase spending in the U.S. It introduces a new failure point in the otherwise straightforward mechanism of spending and requires extensive and unnecessary pre-funding. Normally, we would increase taxes on income X to secure spending Y. Here we increase taxes on income X to buy assets Z, whose profits secure spending Y. What is the point of this extra step? There's no economic argument presented that argues that you can raise revenues more effectively or efficiently in this more effectively or efficiently this more complicated way. Real? I think probably is going to be an economic argument. Probably the only argument there is like, I don't like maybe politically it's just easier to buy an asset and secure those cash flows now than it is to have a consistent, especially if we pass a budget every year in the U.S., then the keep tax rates consistent. Also requires saving in order to spend, postponing resources necessary to meet urgent contemporary needs. Let's take free public college, which costs about $80 billion a year. We can do that by passing a financial transaction tax. But if we did this with a sovereign wealth fund, assuming 5% returns on a fund, we need to first spend $1.6 trillion buying up financial assets. We have to pre-fund. Don't you know we can just do? We can do quantitative easing and then transfer those assets to the sovereign wealth fund. To pre-fund 20 years of free college in order to give the very first person free college. You need to do this in order to secure the assets necessary to make the income necessary to get the spending. This problem presents itself no matter how to go about funding that $1.6 trillion, be it printing money, taxing incomes, or putting requirements on public firms. Why not spend that $1.5 trillion in a useful way right now? There are many reasons you may want to sorry, I can't read, I'm tired, even though I got up not that long ago. There are many reasons you may want to pre-fund spending. Private companies may not be around in the future to pay out their pensions, hence we have a policy interest in them not working on a pay-go mechanism, but we need to be very skeptical of applying this logic to the public sector. Why should we build programs assuming the government won't be there in the future to tax income to pay for them? It has major consequences. As J.W. Mason, don't know how to pronounce that one, Arjun, Jayadev, and Amanda Page, Hungerjak have found. The increasing pressure to pre-fund spending has been a major constraint on state and local spending. Conservatives know this. When they wanted to weaken the post office, they forced them to pre-fund all their future healthcare liabilities in a manner unique to among government agencies. Note that this can easily backfire. We have urgent needs for spending now, not later. If the left comes to believe that spending needs, we got some urgent needs for spending later with fucking AI now, to be clear. But regardless, okay. If the left comes to believe that spending needs to come from pre-funded savings, that weakens our overall position in securing programs. And in a period of depressed demand and secular stagnation, and the logic of building up savings to spend out of is even worse and could make the macroeconomy even weaker. When was this written? 2018. Makes sense, I guess. Okay, I'm interested in the inequality. The power of owners, I think, is arguable, but there's more than just spending money. Another goal for the left is reducing the massive inequality among the top, as well as reducing the power exercised by owners of financial wealth. Mileage varies on this, but economists increasingly believe that shareholders themselves are strangling the economy through a combination of short-term pressure to prioritize payments to owners over investments, and by concentrating industries and exercising oligopolistic pressure via large asset management holdings. So westernized, they socialized older farmland. What are we on about right now? I mean, you're still talking to localists, right? We have many legal and regulatory tools to change this besides the sovereign wealth fund, but a sovereign wealth fund is a particularly weak tool for dealing with this. By tying public goals to the profits of shareholders, it means that we have a vested public interest in ensuring that the owners exercise even more control over the economy. Shareholders do not own firms. They are one of many groups in a large nexus of contracts, each exercising numerous mutual obligations and rewards. Since the 1980s, there's been an intellectual hijacking, arguing that shareholders own the firm and that the firm should only work for them. It has led to a large run-up in the size of dividends and stock buybacks. The sovereign wealth fund piggybacks on this awful development. Kill me. Page not found. Incredible. Hello, Internet Archive. Regardless. Let's consider sovereign wealth fund versus very high taxes on the rich. We know very high taxes on the rich can reduce market income inequality because they make it difficult for the rich to take money out of the firm at the top. Why is a board going to approve a superstar salary if 80% of it is taxed? This third elasticity shows that taxes have a very important regulatory function in keeping the rich in check, but sovereign wealth fund could backfire by pushing in the exact opposite direction. But that's probably, like, depending on exactly how you would do it, probably less distortionary. To incentivize getting money out of the top by tying it directly to not only dedicated funding of programs, but citizenship itself. It's not even clear how this fund would play out in terms of inequality. If we printed $1 trillion and then went to the financial markets and bought $1 trillion worth of stock, it's not clear how that punishes the financial sector. It would be, I mean, if you had, I mean, obviously seniorage would be complicated there because there'd be a inflation tax or whatever, but and that might be distributionally negative or whatever. But like, if you include publicly held wealth in the measure of wealth inequality, you're just like gonna reduce wealth inequality if you do that. You bid up the value of stocks and leave the previous holders with more cash. It does not even does not own or even interact with privately held wealth. You could buy you couldn't buy a share in Koch Industries, for instance, since there aren't any shares. A significant amount of financial wealth claims aren't traded publicly. Yeah, all that centralized spending and anti-market sentiment was so based. LMAO. Real. Nobody's perfect, especially in the Middle East. True. I don't know. The Messiah state, Israel. They're the one perfect nation state in the world, really. Last major goal is to change the behavior of corporate America. Corporations treat their workers poorly, ignore stakeholders, and raise costs to all Americans. Do they, though? Kill me. But I can't tell. Some of this is just meant to appeal to, like, more left-wing people. But this is also, like, a left-wing dude. So some of the stuff is, like, obviously his beliefs. Whether it is raising a minimum wage or dealing with climate change, corporate America is an obstacle to reform. Yet a sovereign wealth fund is one of the worst ways to deal with this. There was a period where I'd go to meetings about responsible investing, people who wanted public pension funds to invest in companies that treated their workers better or took proactive measures on the environment. And there was always a moment where someone stood up and said, why should we do all this when hedge funds and private equity promise us better returns? All the answers about stakeholders and broader commitments and hashtag actually is more profitable wouldn't really cover it. And indeed, public pension funds go into a hedge fund and can't even bring transformation of their fee structure, much less a broader social change. At Truk, is this true? I think Brunek's response is weak. I haven't seen Brunek's response. As you DM it to me as well. This whole conflict is built into the concept of market socialism. We want shareholders to ruthlessly extract profits, but here for the public, we also want the business and the market relations to be subjected to the broader good. Approaching this as shareholders is probably the worst point of contact to try and fix this essential conflict. True. There's also just like, I don't think there's ever, like, if it's literally the fucking entire population owning it, if it is just owned by the federal government or whatever, like there's just gonna be like so many like free rider problems and like principal agent problems there that you're probably never really gonna get like any substantial or at least not anything more substantial than you would get with just like regulations from a sovereign wealth fund. The profits from the sovereign wealth fund don't fall from the sky. They are the result of decisions society makes about how the fruits of economic relationship are distributed. The value of the sovereign wealth fund is just a sum total of future corporate profits, and if we are worried about those profits being too large, the sovereign wealth fund nudges us in the wrong direction. This could easily backfire. Imagine someone looking at their phone and seeing that they will get a $3,000 citizen's dividend. Then they look at the news and see that a major strike is about to break out at a large public company. A labor representative says that workers think that owners are taking too much of the profits and workers deserve a raise. Do you think the person is more or less likely to support the strike, given we've worked so hard to identify their interest with owners? That's real. By tying citizenship and economic security directly to the power of shareholders, we're working in exactly the wrong direction. It isn't necessary, and it isn't even an effective way of accomplishing our goals. So why go through all the effort? How long is Brunek's response? I want to watch my slop. It's not arguing to social wealth fund proposal ever says you need to pre-fund social spending. He just badly asserts that because I advocate one program that sort of has a pre-funding element, then that will somehow be a slippery slope into everyone thinking that everything has to be funded that way. As with all discursive critiques, the only thing you can really say is no, it won't. People aren't that stupid. In this case, social welfare proposal puts into the discourse the idea of pre-funding. Spending through capitalizing a fund that if the left comes to believe that spending needs to come from pre-funded. I don't know, what does he, Brunig mean by sort of has pre-funding? Isn't it literally, I don't, you would have to pre-fund it somehow. Total failure for Brunig. True. Oh, it's all gonna be. It's gonna say fun too many times for me to. I don't know if he's gonna use the term refund. Still have come to believe that spending needs to come from pre-funded savings, that weakens our overall position in securing programs, and appear to depress demand, secular stagnation. The logic of building up savings to spend out out of is even worse and could make the macroeconomy even weaker. Also, technical point, his use of the phrase pre-funding is not actually a correct description of the social wealth fund. I do not argue that we need to save up money so that we can spend it, so we can later spend it down. Rather, I say we need to save up money so that we never spend down. The point of capitalizing a fund is not that we have enough cash on hand for future projected spending. Rather, the point is to socialize the ownership of capital. In building up assets held by the state is the way you do that. Okay, but certainly I understand Brunig has like egalitarian goals as well, and he wants to reduce, inequality by having like just public ownership of it. But like you're also buying the assets for a future cash flow of them. You're like preferring for one reason or another to buy the assets so you can have future cash flow rather than taxing at that point in the future. And you can have reasons for preferring that, but that's like still what you're doing. Why not sell a postal service at trillions of dollars of federal land based? Please, so that we can spend the proceeds right now. Same dynamic. No, because again, you're comparing whether it's preferable to capitalize a fund to have some stream of cash flows in the future versus having cash flow now via taxation and also relying on taxation in the future for the cash flows. Sleight of hand in the word owners. Oh boy. The signifier owners points to the referent millionaire class, as does the signifier shareholders. After the social wealth fund is implemented, those two signifiers point to the referent society as a whole. This is because, as noted in the introduction, the social wealth fund works by shifting the ownership of wealth away from millionaires and to society as a whole through this particular policy instrument. To sleight of hand, by tying public goals to the profits of shareholders, It means that we have a vested public interest in ensuring that owners exercise even more control over the economy. The way this argument works is by making you think owners and shareholders still refers to a millionaire class. I understand in Vruneg's ideal world, this might not be the case, but like, if you read the example he gave, he's just pointing out how there's going to be a tension between, you know, someone having that, you know, getting their $3,000 dividend in this example versus potentially supporting the workers' strike that was otherwise going to happen. His interest is now aligned with what the evil corporate interests are. Because, I mean, even if the government is a large shareholder of the company in that case, like, you're pitting his interest, again, similar to the millionaire class interest. If you instead swap out the society as a whole for the word owners and shareholders, then a sentence describes the definition of socialism. Okay. Back to slop.
The limits of presidential authority when it comes to using emergency powers to shape major policy. You take it away.
Not shitting your fun, but it's crazy. My last comment wasn't censored. When way less spicy things do. Yeah, it's stupid.
I'm going to cheat before I answer that question. I'm going to go back to something Michael said a moment ago, because facts matter. The war in Iran is a joint US-Israeli operation. The idea that Israel killed Khamenei on their own is absurd. If you look at the reporting that came to Trump's intelligence agency came and confirmed that Khamenei was in this building, in this time, at this place. Do you want to kill him? So let's just be very clear that we are responsible for that. There was no international legal justification for it. Every international law professor says it was illegal. Every international lawyer says what happened in Venezuela was illegal. We defied. There's a reason why our own allies don't back us in these places. On emergency powers, a great question. We can actually talk specifics. You mentioned the Supreme Court. You'll notice, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think, and this is good faith, I swear, I don't think Michael has said the word Supreme Court tonight. Maybe I missed it. But let's talk specifics. I mentioned the 9-0 ruling by the Supreme Court on Kilmar Garcia. Trump just said F off. The tariffs case in February, we all knew tariffs are taxes. Everyone knew that. The Trump administration tried to lie to us and say they're not taxes. The Trump administration what's the phrase? Piss on your leg and tell you it's raining, right? It's not a tax. It is a tax. Every economist agrees it's a tax. Every lawyer agrees it's a tax. So the Supreme Court step in and say, well, the taxing and spending clause says only Congress gets to lay and impose taxes, excises, imposts, and duties. And they strike down 6-3. 6-3. Not even close. In February, the IEEPA used by Donald Trump and say you need to refund the tariffs. By the way, the refunds begin next week, and 75,000 businesses have asked for refunds, which is weird because I was told China's paying the tariffs. But anyways, on the specific legal part of this is really interesting because Donald Trump.
Michael Knowles, give me I've seen him do the San Francisco Fed study actually said that tariffs lower prices. I've seen him do that meme, and I haven't seen him do this, but I wonder if we're going to get the, why are companies paying getting the refund if we pay the tariffs? Because I was told consumers were going to pay it. Have you seen John? I have not. Did he give Frank the shock treatment? I miss him. Oh, hold on. Frank is here. He was invisible.
Use the IEEPA, which is an act from the 1970s, 1977, which you can use in an economic emergency. Trump claimed the emergency was fentanyl and migration and trade deficits. He claimed there was a national emergency because we have a trade deficit. Okay. And then, here's the best part. He uses the act to go after his enemies, like he always does. Like he goes after his
Did you have just clips still? I don't remember them.
He uses the act completely illegally, as the Supreme Court pointed out, to basically settle scores. And we know this. How do we know this? Because Trump said so. When the Swiss president called him up to negotiate a reduced tariff, he raised the tariff and said, I did it because she rubbed me up the wrong way. She was annoying. She was aggressive. So he raised the taxes. The Brazilians prosecuted Jair Bolsonaro. Good for them. I wish we'd done it to Trump. Trump got mad and raised tariffs on American consumers to punish Brazil. That's what the founders envisaged. That's what the founders thought they were doing when we were getting away from Mad King George, from my old country. Was that what they thought they were doing? Giving the president the right to tax Americans because he gets pissed off by a European leader or a South American government? Of course it's an abuse of power. Of course it's completely unconstitutional. Of course it goes against the vision of the founders. That is very, very clear.
I'm reminded of a meme that I see sometimes in Catholic circles.
Oh my God.
The guy goes into the confessional box. He says, Father, I like to hop on one leg while eating a piece of pizza and honking my nose. And the priest says, my son, that is very weird, but it is not a sin. And that's the example that Mehdi seems to be giving here. He says, I really hate what Trump did on these tariffs. But one of the mechanisms by which Trump implemented the tariffs, the Supreme Court rejected, and the administration, being very well within the constitutional mainstream, accepted that and then attempted to use other statutes to implement some other tariffs.
Which, by the way, they themselves, first of all, there's obviously like good and bad faith arguments that like you can make, right? Like I think you could state anything as constitutional, but you have good reasons for believing some things could be constitutional and bad things reasoning for thinking other things could be constitutional. And like Trump and his legal team, I don't know about Trump himself necessarily, but probably knew that IEEPA tariffs had a very good chance of like getting struck down. I think doing actions like that is, at least at some scale, a threat to the norms that we have about the Constitution. And then secondly, the new tariffs are doing under Section 122, and there's another section they're reinstituting some of them under. They themselves in court said, we can't use this section as an alternative because essentially the balance of payment deficit refers to something other than a trade deficit, and there no longer is a balance of payments deficit because we're on a free floating exchange rate system. They themselves said that. So clearly what they're doing right now is at least bad faith.
Accepted the Supreme Court's rulings as they generally do. And so you might say I hate tariffs. You might say I don't like the way President Trump conducts diplomacy. I'm speaking to a group of Ivy League students, obviously. Probably many of you think that. But there's nowhere that I see that to be unconstitutional. I mean,
I'm going to pretend they care about the Constitution to criticize Trump's tariffs. That's so true, buddy.
The Republican Party was founded on tariffs. Abraham Lincoln famously said, give me a tariff and I'll give you the best country in the world. The Republican Party was pro-tariff through the early 20th century, a little bit in the mid to late 20th century, and now we seem to like tariffs again. Presidents of both parties levy tariffs through a variety of mechanisms. You can say it's bad.
Dog. How can we, first of all, again, we're talking about the constitutionality of these things. I'm not aware of a Democratic tariff ever getting struck down by the Supreme Court or by any court, considering that they've all been done through like section 301 and 232. They've all done the 90-day review and that's required and approval from the Commerce Department. Like they've all done that. Trump didn't do that. He very much tried to avoid that. Now it has to do that to some extent because of the IEEPA tariffs getting struck down. But even then, he's trying to circumvent some of those things by appealing to section 120, which doesn't require some of the things that section 232 and 301 tariffs do, where they, like I said, require review and such about if it's actually a national security concern. He's appealing to a statute about there being a balance of payments deficit, which doesn't technically, even when we were on a fixed exchange rate system, there is no, strictly speaking, balance of payment deficit. It's still equal to zero. But back then, balance of payments deficit referred to the drawdown in the native country's reserves when we ran deficits in other areas. But now that we're on when we try to fix our exchange rates, you had to occasionally draw down reserves to fix the exchange rate within the certain limits we had picked. But now we're on a floating exchange rate system, so that just doesn't happen anymore. And Trump's own lawyer said that. Where there's contracts right, we can make the Constitution mean whatever we want for progress, right? True. This is my position. What's the relevance of you saying this? Are you trying to insinuate that's my position, or what are we doing?
Economic policy, but there's certainly nothing unconstitutional about it. To Mehdi's point that the companies are eating the cost of the tariffs in many cases, that is true. I know this because I own a company called Mayflower Cigars, which makes great cigars, and I highly recommend them. But we did eat the cost of a lot of, thank you very much. We did eat the cost of a lot of the tariffs, that's true. And I do wonder if, as a political tactic, the refunds for those tariffs that are forthcoming might actually help juice the economy before the midterms. So in a way, it's probably a good political tactic. But I've yet to see some argument that the tariffs are unconstitutional. The point that we've observed here is that the Supreme Court struck them down under the basis of a national emergency, and the Trump White House.
And that's not evidence of. But first of all, that's not why they said the IEEPA doesn't. The president can't do tariffs with IEEPA. Not that there wasn't a national emergency that warranted the president using tariffs under IEEPA. But regardless of that, I probably would have preferred the second one because that would have gotten rid of his ability to do certain tariffs with other statutes. But regardless,
complied. The point that we've observed.
We don't take the Supreme Court ruling that way as evidence, especially when the Supreme Court is mostly conservative appointed.
Here is that the Supreme Court struck them down under the basis of a national emergency.
I think it is populist thinking.
So, Michael, since you were the one who introduced the word a dishonest tactic, let me say back to you, I think you're engaged in dishonest tactics tonight by avoiding the substance of argument every time. It's not whether there's a genocide in Nigeria. The issue is, did Donald Trump have the constitutional power to bomb Nigeria? No. It's not whether tariffs are good or bad. That's irrelevant to this debate. Of course, tariffs are totally fine if Congress imposed them, not Donald Trump, because he didn't like the female leader of Switzerland as she spoke.
Horrible. Cringe.
That's the question debating today. At every instant, every question that Ella's asked, every topic we've covered, I pointed out that what he's doing is going against the Constitution, going against the Supreme Court, going against Trump-appointed judges, going against precedents that you like to cite, and you're dodging it. And you're saying things about, well, tariffs are part of our history. Okay, great. This is not about tariffs. It's about what Donald Trump did with tariffs. He took a power from the Constitution, the Taxing and Spending Clause, Article 1, Section 8, only Congress shall have the power to lay or collect taxes, duties, imposts, excises, and he arrogated it to himself because he believes there are no checks on his power. He's on the record. He said in 2019, I have an Article 2 power to do whatever I want as president. That is not what Article 2 says. He does not have the power to do whatever he wants. The Founding Fathers did not create America so that they could have another monarch, another king, another dictator, but no one seems to have given that memo to Donald Trump. And when he lost at the Supreme Court, Michael said he accepted the decision. Again, dishonest. He actually said that the judges were fools and lapdogs. He said Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch embarrassed themselves in front of their families. And he also said that the Supreme Court justices are weak, stupid, and bad. Again,
hey, let's go.
Modern era.
All right. Well, this is unfortunately our last moderated question before we go to audience.
Also, probably the some of the revenue I don't know what other word to call it other than taxes, because that's essentially what they are. Some of it, like the deal he struck with NVIDIA to get like 15% of their revenue on chips that they sell to China, probably unconstitutional. You can't do export taxes under our constitution, so probably that is not constitutional. I can't imagine any strong interpretation that would grant that being constitutional, but you know.
Q&A, and I would like to bring it back closer to home. You've both experienced elite higher education, except I would argue your father, Dartmouth, experienced the best higher education. And I'm sure you have seen the recent changes in dynamics between U.S. universities and the federal government. As debates over free speech and ideological diversity intensify on campuses, what role, if any, should the federal government play in ensuring viewpoint diversity? And what would that role look like within constitutional limits? I believe you started last time, so we'll go for you.
Yes, I actually don't love viewpoint diversity. I don't really care for it at all. I know that puts me outside the right-wing mainstream, but I'm in line with institutions having beliefs and standards and norms, and I think societies ought to have that. Even the notion of protecting viewpoint diversity is relatively recent, comes from the mid-90s in our jurisprudence. But regardless, I'm all for reforming the universities, which are failing in their chief missions. So I suppose the question is President Trump suppressing the First Amendment? And I know that my opponent here on stage made a bold prediction, a promise really, in March of 2024. He said that if President Trump were to be elected again, the stakes for the media were very, very high. What would happen to the free press under President Trump? You know, he's already threatening to do it. Last I checked, unfortunately, the New York Times and the CNN still get to publish. MSNBC has sort of gone downhill, but that's mostly because NBC didn't want to deal with them anymore. There's been really no threat to free speech whatsoever under President Trump. His critics are allowed to threaten to kill him. I mean, in the case of Hassan Piker, one of the chief
yes, bro.
critics of President Trump and one of the people who's instigated violence was exalted by the New York Times just last week after 3 assassination attempts. So I wish that, frankly, there were more limits on.
Has Hassan, for all the things Hassan has done, I don't think it's true that he has threatened to kill Donald Trump. Maybe I didn't see that, but I don't think that's true. It wouldn't like surprise me, but I don't think that part's true. And then also, like, you've seen they were talking about universities. You've seen people like anti-Israel protesters have get their visas revoked for their fucking op-eds, saying just like merely stating that Israel is committing genocide or whatever. Who doesn't know? I mean, I'll give you my opinion from from what I know. Like, I'm not like Marbury Madison obviously was ruled on by the Supreme Court. I would assume that they did not err in their judgment there, right? And then this, like, I would just say the argument for like the Commerce Clause applying to this or whatever is not that we can do whatever we want, right? Because it's all just constructs. That's not the legal arguments given in these cases. That's not those aren't the beliefs of many of the lawyers arguing for these things or whatever. I don't know if they are. I don't take a strong position on it or whatever, but it's just not the case that like anyone who disagrees with your original interpretation or whatever is like doing the constructs. It's all just constructs. It all just doesn't matter. Self-described powers is not air, then Trump's all good. Saying that the Supreme Court, like, give to some degree, giving themselves the power of judicial review or whatever, but that was just them. That was them interpreting the Constitution in a like not unreasonable way. Like I think that stems. I think that stems from their not unreasonable interpretation. They granted it to themselves, but based on what I think is just not an unreasonable interpretation of the Constitution, correct? It's nowhere in the Constitution. I think it's not a unreasonable interpretation of it. Do you think it is an unreasonable interpretation? It's the original intent of the court. So I'm assuming you think it is then.
Speech under Trump, but there certainly is not. And then when you look at constitutional precedent, we of course have to remember that our second president of the United States, John Adams, passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, much of which remains on the books today. Under Woodrow Wilson, Democrat president, he imprisoned his political rival Eugene Debs, the leader of the Socialist Party, but that act has been used to prosecute
By the way, I mean,
people for speech.
Speaking of Alien Sedition Act, Trump literally used the Alien Enemies Act to deport people, not for their speech to be fair, but still unconstitutionally, still against the due process, still violated due process there.
For many, many years, including the socialist journalist.
They made A11 off the bat.
The leaker of the
I don't know what that means.
And Bradley Manning, even under Barack Obama. So,
oh my God, localist, you're retarded. You're retarded. Have you listened to anything? You're actually retarded. Because I said, like, literally, 3 times. Yeah, it's 2 or 3 times. I don't think it's an unreasonable interpretation of the Constitution. I would not be saying I don't think it's an unreasonable interpretation of the Constitution if it was an explicit power in the Constitution. That wouldn't make sense. I don't think it would make sense to saying that the Congress has the right to raise and support armies is a not unreasonable interpretation of the Constitution. I wouldn't say that because that is expressly in the Constitution. That is a explicit power in the Constitution. It wouldn't make sense for me to phrase it the way I did if I didn't think it was an implied power.
We've seen a lot of curtailment of speech. I think a lot of that is within the confines of the First Amendment, and I wish that President Trump would tighten it up a little bit, especially when it comes to those left-wing universities that receive federal dollars and certainly don't need to.
That is an amazing answer, Michael. Both to deny that there's an assault on the free press and to say you wish there was a bit more of an assault on the free press. Let's just be very clear. Let's just be very clear about where the facts are on this. Michael thinks everything's fine. Okay. Donald Trump has arrested Don Lemon. He's raided the home of a Washington Post reporter. He has blocked the AP from the Oval Office. He tried to defund NPR and PBS. A judge shot it down. He's tried to ban flag burning, which goes against Supreme Court case Texas versus Johnson from 1989. He's tried to get a late.
No, it wasn't. What wasn't?
Jokes. He has just go down the list when it comes to the free press. They tried to restrict reporters reporting at the Pentagon. A judge shot that down too, saying you're not supposed to prescribe the press. He has threatened the New York Times just the other day. He said they should be guilty of sedition because they reported on his Iran war in a way he did not like. He has engaged in multiple lawsuits to try to intimidate and suppress the press. His defense secretary bragged loud. CNN will be coming under new pro-Trump ownership.
Where's the has the Cash Patel lawsuit moved at all, by the way? Has there been any new stuff for this? I guess not. I would assume there would have been something by now. Oh wait, oh it was already I thought it was. I don't know, it's dismissed already. Oh, they dismissed it. I didn't know it was dismissed already. I missed that. There has been something.
Just go down the list. Students. We talk about universities. We've seen students arrested for their speech, not for violence, for their speech. A Reagan-appointed judge said the arrest of students like Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Ozturk was a full-throated assault on the First Amendment. A Reagan-appointed judge, William Young, said that, not some liberal Marxist. And as for threatening people's speech, just the other day, just a few months ago, Donald Trump threatened 6 members of Congress with death for their speech. He said seditious behavior, punishable by death. What did they do? They did a video saying, hey, military, don't follow illegal orders. He said, you should be killed for that. This is the most anti-free speech, anti-free press, anti-viewpoint diversity administration in American history. It's led by a complete snowflake who can't tolerate
You're asking me or localist, Springo? Ari Madison was 1803, wasn't it?
criticism from anyone, can't tolerate jokes from late night comedians. Think about the countries where comedians are taken off the airwaves because the leader didn't like their jokes. Are those constitutional democracies? Are those constitutional republics? Are those democracies that we think Americans have? Think about that when you vote tonight. Think about the kind of place where the president threatens students, threatens media organizations, threatens comedians, and threatens members of the other party while arresting journalists. The whole thing is absurd to suggest he's not an anti-First Amendment president. It's actually at the core of my argument for why he's not upholding the Constitution, because he's not upholding the First Amendment.
I think it's very telling that my opponent objects to the arrest of Don Lemon, which was not, in fact, for free speech, but was because Don Lemon violated federal law and bragged about it on camera.
Oh my God!
And bragged about it on camera. If you'll allow me to finish, I'm trying to engage in my free speech, and there seems
bragged about. I forget the exact wording of the law, but bragged about like obstructing a church proceeding or whatever. I don't think he ever bragged about that.
My free speech too.
So what Don Lemon actually did was he violated a federal law, the FACE Act. He walked in with an unruly mob to disrupt a religious proceeding.
After them, right? He didn't walk in. He walked in after they had already like disrupted the church. I forget. I don't know the wording of the law, but disrupted the religious practice.
This terrorized children. He did all sorts of terrible things. Targeted Christians. No surprise that would be given a pass from the man who denied the genocide of Christians in Nigeria tonight. Noticing a touch of a trend, but to bring it back.
Oh my God.
The defunding of PBS is somehow a violation of the First Amendment. I thought that the president and the Congress had the right to take care and make sure that the laws are effective and executed, and also Congress has the power of the purse. I didn't know PBS and Big Bird were in the First Amendment to the Constitution. That would be news to James Madison. When it comes to the curtailment of reporters, no one has been more transparent than President Trump. He answers the phone when CNN journalists call him. I would never do any such thing, but the president does that. He has.
Wow, I didn't consider that. My mind has changed.
And so, yet again, President Trump has exalted the First Amendment. In fact, he has embraced a free speech. He has embraced a free speech.
How many they revoked the fucking. I don't know if this ever got changed, but like they revoked the fucking AP's press pass, like White House press pass, for not wanting to call it the Gulf of America. Like, and they fired all the the Pentagon. They're like revoked the press pass of like, all the reporters in the Pentagon and replaced them with like Kim Higbee. Pentagon. Press passes. Revoked. Like,
position, even when it comes to flag burning. I'll just finish up on this point.
non-fluent voice cracks are a feature, not a bug. It's true.
A constitutionally protected right in 1989. Curious that it wasn't 1889 or 1789. It's a live question debated in American jurisprudence. President Trump has issued an executive order to bring that challenge back to the court, as he should, and will.
Yeah, OAN was the only one that said it would remain.
It along the way because President Trump loves.
Not fun to regret taking puberty blockers.
Right, well, we're going to pivot
not at all,
Q&A.
because I know who I am.
On either aisle, I will.
And I'm living my truth. Okay, I'm gonna stream again later today, but I'm gonna go for now. I just have shit to do because my sleep crystal is broken. What's the oh. Fair Washington would have run them off with his personal musket. Who? Okay, I'm gonna see y'all tonight. You should do LSD on stream. I'd like it to happen. But until then, I kind of doubt anyone is actually streaming right now, so I don't know if there's anyone to send you to. Yeah, there's not. Okay, well, like, comment, sub. I'm killing Frank. Not that long. Also, it's still the vibes is stupid. It's not just vibes. They're clearly models that you can have and understand without. I mean, understanding the concepts of calculus will help, obviously, but you don't need the mathematical formation of everything to understand consumer and producer surplus and how that could potentially be calculated in a supply and demand model using calculus. But regardless, okay. I'll see y'all later tonight. It is absolutely vibe. I don't think it's fair to characterize it as vibes. I just don't think it. Like, I don't think when I pull up it's like physics without calculus. No, don't. It's definitely not vibes. Like, there's not it's not based on like intuition. It's not based on whatever other synonyms for vibes. It's based on actual models. It's based on actual observed evidence and/or theoretical evidence. I don't think it's fair to consider it vibes. Do you think all of like philosophy shit, like if someone makes a philosophical argument, I don't think that's all like just vibes. I think some of it is like some of it is like intuitions that are like tangential to what we might call vibes or whatever. But certainly when I am making an argument against tariffs, for example, I'm not using vibes for that. I'm appealing to, like, there's no vibes in me saying, oh, we can like look at FOB data from Indian exports, and we can look at the pre-export price of the per unit pre-export price of goods going to the US versus goods going to other countries, and we have like a plausibly exogenous variation in tariffs when the US suddenly imposed a 40% tariffs in India, and then we can do like a difference and see whether or not the companies lowered their prices because of the tariff, and we observe that they just don't. There's no statistically significant effect, right? Like, I don't like none of that is just vibes, right? The vibe argument would be like, but the US really cool and big, so they will reduce prices. I'm not saying you're unintelligent. I mean, I don't think you're saying that, but I just don't think it's fair to consider it vibes. I fully believe you will agree with me in time. Okay, that's not responsive to my argument. It's solely regurgitation. We don't have access to it. What are you? No. What do you mean? Solely regurgitation when you don't have access to the understanding granted by the underlying tools. No. You can what? I don't know what you mean by that. No, like it just isn't. Like, there's clearly a good understanding of the models and some of the assumptions and some of the theoretical things. No, go to sleep fun. Well, I'll probably be doing other stuff before I go to sleep, but I just don't think it's a fair characterization. We'll discuss this another time. Why don't you want to? Why you running? Why you running? I just don't. I don't think it's a totally unfair characterization. At least with most people's understanding the word vibes. I clearly have a capacity to use data and to understand models in a way that many people who I consider to be using vibes don't. Want me to hop in VC? Sure. What's up? Hello?
Hello, sir.
Specifically, like, you agree, like, when I talk to people, like, I'm clearly, like, when I talk to people who I think are using vibes a lot of times, at least what I mean by vibes and what I think most people understand vibes to mean is, like, not making an argument based on data, oftentimes not having, like, a solid model. Maybe they have some mental model of things or whatever, but not having a, model that's at least actually been modeled before and, like, in papers or whatever. I do that in a lot of debates, in a lot of discussions, in a lot of reactions, when I think someone is just doing a vibes-based analysis about, for example, how they feel about wealth inequality or whatever, or how they feel based on, like, the headlines they read about inequality and tariffs and et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't think what I'm doing is vibes in comparison to that, at least.
I agree with you, and there's a very strong sense in which me calling it vibes doesn't work if your sole meaning of vibes is purely intuition without data grounding. But what I'm pointing to is the difference between a tech and an engineer. Now, a tech can work on your car. They know what the proper model numbers are to order for replacements. They're very familiar with all of the catalogs. But do they truly understand how an engine works? Or would that require the deeper skill set of the tools that engineers work through and develop?
I mean, I would assume that most of them have some understanding of how an engine works, but I understand.
No.
But I would assume that most of them have some understanding of what an engine works, how an engine works, which I wouldn't consider. I wouldn't consider vibes. I wouldn't consider. I would assume.
What word would you like me to use? But there's a clear distinction between the tech and the engineer. If you are going solely on data, that is a tech. That's regurgitation, because the understanding of economics comes from the principles that are built out by the underlying mathematical, like, mechanisms.
I mean, I think obviously you can understand economics without certain math. Like, obviously you can make
just like the tech. You can.
I just don't consider that, like, I don't know what that just seems like such a dumb term to use. Like is all philosophy just like regurgitation and stuff like that? Is a lot of other social science just like regurgitation?
Regurgitation is generally a good foundation for learning. As a mathematician, regurgitation is mathematics all the way up through late middle school, right? But we don't call that math.
What do you mean?
I mean, arithmetic is a subset of math.
Sure.
Being able to recall what and quickly have multiplication, and addition built in so that you can do, like, sure, these basic skills are absolutely fundamental, but you would not call the person doing that a mathematician. Just as I would not call the person who's purely relying on data an economist.
I never call myself an economist. I'm nowhere near an economist, right? That's a pretty gate-kept term. I would never call myself an economist.
You're well on your way. You are well on your way to an economist. You're
To be a economist, you basically have to be like PhD and or like work at a think tank where your title is like chief economist or whatever.
You're killing me, man. I love gatekeeping, but you are what you do.
I'm like to some degree an econ wonk, but I'm not a economist.
You're a
pretty
economist. Is that okay?
Sure.
Either way, I think once you get through those higher level math classes, once you see how that applies within the economic setting, you will look back at this position right now and you'll go, damn, he was smart, but he didn't see the forest for the trees.
Okay, I severely doubt it, but all right. I don't think that falls under what most people consider to be vibes, at least, but whatever.
Give me a different word. I'll use a different word from now on. I agree with you. I strongman your position. There's a very real way in which it's not vibes. What
I don't know like what. I don't know what word I would use to describe. It's
techie's not right because that makes you think about technology.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll use whatever word you want, but that's the distinction I'm pointing to. Does that clarify what I'm getting at?
Sure. Okay, I'm gonna go now.
Love you, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yep.
Hey, you asked me to come in. Don't give me that anything else BS.
That is true.
But
I was
it's good.
Yeah. All right. See you. All right. I'm gonna be like I said, streaming tonight. So like, subscribe, share, comment. But yeah, see you guys tonight for a more normal-ish stream. So